I'd like to call this meeting to order. Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, then. Next on our agenda is the approval of the city council agenda. Does anybody have anything to add or change?
I do.
Mm-hmm.
I want to add resolution number 2025-38.
Okay. We will add that under new business, letter I. I would also like to add resolution 2025-40, and that will be letter J under new business. Do we need to pull out consent agenda items now or no?
I think you could pull them out.
You could if you know what you want to take out, sure.
I do.
Oh, okay.
Okay, I'd like to pull out letter H from the consent agenda
Okay.
and A, the treasurer's report. Anything else?
Can we pull out F as well, please?
F, yes.
And let's see, I want to pull out the March 11 meeting minutes, please, B.
B, okay. So from the consent agenda, I have A, B, F, and H. Is that correct?
Yes.
Anything else? Okay. Can I get a motion then to approve the council agenda?
Can I add one announcement as
Oh.
well, but I can do it once we get to announcements.
Okay.
But otherwise, I will move to approve the agenda with said changes.
Okay, can I get a second, please?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion passes. I would like to open the public forum. Is there anybody here who would like to speak? Okay, Mr. Winter, come on up.
Martin Winter, 15 Oaks Lane. And I know I'm going to be speaking tonight about the Parks Committee opening and also possibly about the hockey net. So I just wanted to say one thing. I did check out the tennis courts today. I hadn't really looked at them for a while. And there's some vegetation growing underneath the plastic link surface on the side nearest the road where the shading is on the fence. And also I noticed that there is a couple of tears in each side, each of the nets on either court in the netting, but it isn't much. So I just wanted to say, I know that there's going to be maybe a competition between my net and the tennis court nets as far as funding for this year. But I just want to say that the tennis court nets look pretty good, in my opinion. They don't really look like they're degrading, except for a couple areas that could be sewn in. Now, maybe that's not what people want, but nonetheless, they look pretty good, so I would say they could last another year for sure with some minor mending. That's all I had to say.
Okay, thank you.
Can we ask Jim maybe to take a look at the vegetation?
The Parks Committee has
Yeah,
it.
the Parks Committee
Yeah.
sounds good.
Anybody else? Anybody else want to speak? No? Seeing none, we'll close the public forum. We'll move on to announcements. I'll just read them off the agenda here. We have a date change for the Board of Appeal and Equalization meeting. It will now be held on April 21st from 6 p.m. to 6:30 p.m.
Also, the new 20-mile-per-hour speed limit will be effective beginning May 1st, and that will go into effect once the signs have been put up. I would also like to publicly thank several residents who were particularly helpful this month, and that would be Cyril and Sue Kapsner, Art Arsenault, Jamie Isley, and two of our employees, Therese Bellinger and Jim Rydeen. There was a lot of work that has been done in the city and in Village Hall, and I really appreciate their willingness to step up and volunteer. So with that, Kathy, did you have another announcement?
Yes, I do. On April 26th, we have a cleanup day that will be here at City Hall, 10 a.m., I believe, right? 10 a.m.?
Yes.
Thank you. And then that's being followed by a treasure hunt
Yes.
as well. So bring your family and your gloves and implements of destruction like shovels. So we can do some cleanup around the city to tidy up parks and get our city lovely again. And that's a Saturday, so there's bound to be coffee.
Thank you. Yeah, the city work days are lovely, so if any of you have not been to one before, please join us. We can get a lot of work done, and it's fun as well. Okay, city council updates. So we're starting something new with each council meeting. Each council person will kind of update our residents on what we've been doing for the past month. So we'll just start with Bridget. Bridget, would you like to tell us what's been going on?
Sure. I've been working on the Facebook site, the Birchwood Facebook site. We have 406 people who follow us, so that's more than I thought it would be. And trying some new things with posts and recognition, so that's been fun. And then also have been working on this resolution to get the docks fees to the Parks Commission, or Parks Committee, for them to spend on our parks.
Thank you. Mr. Isley?
Started assessing the technology needs in our staff office, and then donated two 27-inch monitors to the office that are currently in use, kind of going through and figuring out what we actually need to help our staff, and then sort of trying to figure out the website, how to use WordPress. And piggybacking off that, I just kind of wanted to give everyone a breakdown of how many views our website gets. So last month, in the month of March, we had 2,500 views with 597 unique visitors.
Thank you, Ryan. Ryan and I have also been interviewing candidates for the city administrator position, so that's kept us busy. I've been in contact with several residents. They've contacted me about issues in the city, and I've returned their emails and worked that out with our maintenance man, Jim, so we're taking care of city business that way. Worked on a mission statement for the council and also did a little bit of updating here at City Hall. Mr. Hankins.
I've been dealing with zoning issues, so that's all.
Yeah,
Pretty much.
a big job.
That's pretty much all.
that's a big job.
This month, it was a very big job, so.
I've been working on the Preby Lake, the draining issue there with Preby Lake Halls Marsh agreement. Newsletter update details, pulling those together for our next newsletter, working with the Parks Committee for nets and fencing that they're looking to add to parks, and also some signage changes within the parks, to potentially have a temporary location for some signage that we have. Also doing my monthly check for forestry and marsh grants.
Thanks, Kathy. Perfect. I appreciate all your work, by the way. You guys are a great team to work with. Okay, let's move on to old business. Ryan Hankins, would you like to do approve resolution 2025-27?
Yeah, so I want to give a little background on this. There was a pretty contentious meeting last month what it come down to is I think that, you know, a variance application that wasn't contentious in and of itself came in, and there were some questions, you know, from the city planner about, related to the city planner's report about what variance applied. You know, I think it's unfortunate that the meeting was, you know, kind of went like it did, and you know, I probably could have handled it better myself, but, you know, on the other hand, this is probably nearly $1 million in construction, and I think the result of letting that go through as it was could have been and likely would have been a structure that was illegally constructed. So I think this is an important thing to fix. And just to briefly describe, the structure extended, the pre-existing structure extended into the ordinary high water line setback, and in order to increase the height of it, a setback to the height code was requested, but the new structure conformed to the height code, so that wasn't the proper variance. You know, the proper variance was the setback variance because the expansion occurred within the setback. You know, I spent a lot of time fixing this. I want to just emphasize, I think, how important these things are to fix. And with that, I think that's a good enough introduction to it. You know, and one thing I will say is we did invite the variance applicant to come talk to us. He's enjoying some time in Italy. But I would just amend the variance a little bit here to say the whereas clause, whereas the property owner seeks to construct an addition to the existing structure, I would say whereas the property owner seeks to construct an addition to the existing structure and deck that will increase its height only above areas where the pre-existing structure and deck extended into the setback. And then I would suggest also down here under where we're in the resolved section of the variance that the variance request, number one, the variance request by the property owner at 131 Wildwood Avenue to allow a vertical increase in the height of the structure, including the deck, within the required OHWL setback is hereby granted. And with those two amendments, I move to adopt resolution. Oh, I'm sorry, let me make one more amendment. It says Wildwood in the title, and it should say Wildwood. So I would move to adopt Resolution 2025-27, a resolution granting a variance to allow an increase in the height of a structure at 131 Wildwood Avenue within the ordinary high water line setback.
Question for you, Alan, regarding this. Can we do this? Because the resident didn't actually come in for this variance specifically, they came in for something else. So it was an error on the resident. Can the city retroactively change what the resident filed for?
It's novel to me, at least I've never seen this done this way.
Mm-hmm.
And as everyone who was here now was here then, you know, it became contentious over which variance applied. I think it's good to roll this out and talk about it. It's a little difficult to recommend it when the applicant is in Italy. Does the applicant know that this is happening?
Mm-hmm. Yes, they do.
And did we get any buy-in, any agreement that this is acceptable?
Yep, I don't have the, I can find the email, but they basically said they read through it and they agreed with it, they understood and agreed with it. So they pretty clearly said that.
Okay, well, taking it on faith that that's what, that that's what they told you, if we're just correcting something that really only affects a variance that was provisionally granted under the wrong auspices. And just from my perspective, and I know that you'd wanted something between the planner and myself kind of explaining this.
Mm-hmm.
And it's tough when both kind of apply, if you will.
Sure.
And I would only amend this to say, even in your whereases, Ryan, the property owner seeks to construct an addition to the existing structure. What got us into this mess, or part of it, was the fact that the structure was taken away entirely. So this is a new build. There's nothing in there as far as an existing structure goes, right? The proposal is to construct where one existed, like you say in the previous whereas. So
Yeah.
there's still a couple of things that I would clean up. But if we have the buy-in from the applicant, I
Could
think
you,
they just want to just get going on their
Could-
planning and building.
could you make those recommendations to us on what we should clean up here, Alan?
I just underlined it now, because I, like
Okay.
everyone else, just got to see it firsthand when we got the packet, but
Okay,
I'm just speaking of the 1, 2, 3, 4th whereas.
yeah,
In addition, and it's ticky-tacky, but in addition to the existing structure, which
to
we
the
can all acknowledge.
pre-existing structure, you would insert a pre in there?
Well, I would put what you put in the previous whereas, which is the recently existing structure.
Okay.
Or just qualify it by saying, they seek to construct, within the footprint of the previously existing structure and increase the height. And so the planner thought, well, that's an expansion of a nonconformity based on height, because that was the only thing that was changing, which is why I think he just let that go through as the previous variance was written.
But, so I guess my question is this the proper way to handle this? Would it be just to say, like, we granted that variance in error, and then the homeowner has to come in for another variance? Or is this resolution acceptable to resolve the issue? Or is the requirement on the homeowner to actually apply for the variance? Because we're basically saying, the variance that we granted is not applicable anymore, and this is the variance that you should have, and then we're just saying, oh, this is kind of what you meant, we're gonna approve it through this resolution. I just wanna make sure that that's okay. That was a little long-winded, hopefully that
No, I
made
think-
sense.
I understand what you're saying, and I think in the spirit in which the applicant applied, as if you recall, went through and, I don't want to butcher his last name, but the proposal was presented by the gentleman that owns, the family that owns the lot, and I believe that even Ryan asked, did you go through the code and do this? And he essentially had done it himself.
Yeah.
So these were all the variances he thought that he needed. And so, as a practical matter, I think once you adopt a variance that allows them to build in this area, I don't think that he cares whether it's a variance from one part of the code or the other part of the
Sure.
code.
So I'm just thinking of a good way to phrase this in my own head to make sense of it. We're just,
I think we're amending the justification
Okay.
of the variance,
perfect,
which is
thank
what
you.
this says,
That's what I was trying to
I
say.
think. And since we've got the applicant saying, that sounds good, I was just making sure that I had my ducks in a row and had the variances that I needed. So to me, it makes sense to do it this way, especially if the applicant knows what we're doing and why. So I want you guys to be comfortable, and because the variance really would have been addressed at the public hearing, in other words, whoever had an objection to it before would not have any different objection if we made them go through this process again. So I think due process for the purposes of variance granting or declining has been honored.
Like, the intent of the variance is essentially the same. I want to build to this height, so it's.
Right, they don't care whether
Yeah.
it's under this code or that
Whatever.
code.
Yep.
And we told the neighborhood, hey,
Yep.
something's going here, and it's gonna be this tall, come in and talk about it if you have a problem with it, right? And so aside from review by the DNR, which I think they would have to do anyway for a build there, now that there's nothing there, this is just a variance from what we have to enforce, which is that 50-foot setback, so.
I mean, Ryan, I think this is common that it happens and we adjust variances. It's not common, we've done it quite like we did here, where there was a lot of contention and it got fixed after a meeting.
Yep, I just want to make sure we
Well,
are meeting
I'm
our.
getting there.
No, I just
So-
want to make sure we're meeting our requirements by, so, because the homeowner's not coming in, we're basically saying, we're wiping the other variance out, and we're saying, oh, you meant to do this
We're
one.
we're not wiping anything out. It doesn't replace, we can't ungrant variances, which is part of the reason I was so concerned in that meeting. It's because once you grant it, you can't revoke it.
Unless it was, yeah,
It-
unless there's a very good reason. So this is amending the rationale for the variance that was granted.
And so, well, it's not amending anything, it's a new variance. Let's
It's a
say we,
replacement variance.
let's say we had, granted variances to allow 0-foot setbacks in a lot, we can't just take that back a month later.
But us as the council can't just write a resolution to grant variances, right?
That's correct. It would,
You're not
it has to go through, it has to be mailed out to people. And I mean, I don't disagree with you here. I think we need to take a very serious look at our processes and understand, because this can't happen again. And I think in this case, we're kind of doing the best we can. Now, having said that, if you wanted to say, I really think this should go and be mailed out to people and go to the planning commission again, I don't think that would be a bad thing to do.
I don't either. I just, and I'm kind of okay with the resolution as well. I just want to make sure we are on solid legal footing, because I don't want to come back here next month and be like, oops, we
Well,
screwed this up
I mean-
again. We have to do another.
What I can say is I think it's really concerning in these applications we're getting, where the applications don't actually describe, and there are no drawings that actually tell us what the variance is that we're granting and what the contours of it are in visual form. Because without that, I think we continue to be at risk here that this may also not be the right variance. And I think Ben was pretty articulate in his report that we're granting variances based on incomplete drawings, and I think that's a serious area where the village needs to improve in terms of our variance process. So it seems very, very risky to me, the way we're handling these in general. So,
And if you want to be belt and suspenders, then yes, of course, the right thing to do would be to consider a different application and go through the process. I
So
can't
this-
tell you not to do that, because technically this is a different consideration, but you're going to go through the same process that you have with the other variants. It's just
I
under
would
a different part of the
also-
code.
Point out that if we do this for one resident, if we don't do it for the next resident, there is that potential look that it looks like we have favored one group over
I
another. So
agree.
My preference would be to have this one go back to an application to have that additional variance. I have no problem granting it, because we technically have done it, but I would like it to go through the same procedures that any other.
Yeah, because technically, we've already granted a variance to build the
Get their
house.
plans ready, yeah.
Yeah, to a certain height, so that really shouldn't hold them back. We're just asking them to apply for another variance.
Paper the file. You
Yeah,
can,
yeah,
you
yeah,
can
yeah.
waive the fee for it, because
Let's
it would've
waive the
been
fee
lumped
then.
if it
Yeah.
applied for.
Yeah,
But this should not hinder construction in any way.
no, because they can still do their plans based on
Right.
what we've granted, so it's just a
It's just a
T's and
formality.
I's.
Yeah.
But it,
Yeah, they,
would like to
they're
have them
moving
go
forward
through
with their
the-
plans.
I will say this to you, as the planning commission basically, at the planning commission, the city planner stood up and said, this variance is helpful and causes no harm, and the planning commission didn't discuss it in any way and waved it through. So I think it would be good for maybe my drawings at least to be submitted to the planning commission, so they kind of understand and can give an original opinion on this.
I have no problem with you having the planning commission review what's written as far as any of the
Yeah,
materials.
I
I
would
have no
agree.
issue with that whatsoever, but.
And, you know, I also want to say, I think, as an aside, I'm really sorry to the homeowner on this, that this is playing out this way. Like, this is not a good process.
Well, I mean, think about it, they're not gonna be harmed in any way going
They-
forward. We're doing something that,
Well-
yes, it's annoying that they have to apply for another variance,
That's
but
right, yeah.
I do think it's a good exercise
It's,
for
Right.
the planning commission and us, just to make sure we're doing it right.
and as long as it doesn't delay their construction, I doubt they care a whole lot, but
Yeah.
like, it would be better to have these buttoned down much, much better than we have here. I
Yes.
agree with everybody, I think, which is what you guys are
It'd be
saying.
best to have another application recognizing that it's needed by the homeowner too,
That wouldn't.
not just
yeah.
an email saying go for it, so.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I agree, so.
I'm
You know
not
when they're
sure.
back?
They said the end of the month, I think the end of April they're off, and I won't say where, I shouldn't say that, I don't like to tell when people are on vacation in public meetings, but,
Just in case they
Like-
mention it to you, that's all.
so, but yeah, it'll be a few weeks here, but, I mean, maybe Len could handle this, but.
Luckily, there's nothing to break into there, so we should be okay.
I do think, though, that when we get back to the owner or the person who's building this, that we say that we have learned a lot from this, that we don't like how it went, that it wasn't particularly client-focused, and we're gonna be working to make it better.
Hopefully they're watching.
There'll be a video.
I'm okay with kicking it back to the planning commission or having them fill out a new variance. I just do not want it to cost the homeowner.
So I will withdraw my motion and move to waive the reapplication fee.
Okay.
For this specific
But
variance.
it's not gonna delay construction.
No, because we already
Well-
granted the variance that they could,
No, we haven't granted the variance. They need this variance to get their permits.
They just need a different variance than what they
and-
applied for.
One of the reasons I was kind of pushing
Yeah,
this
yeah. It's-
was
just clicked.
basically, the city planner was pretty insistent that the height variance was the one that was needed. And I think the concern there that I had was that if permits were issued based on his opinion there, that those could easily be contested in court, and then you're at a significant risk that somebody could shut down construction there of a very expensive project. And you know, the best case scenario is that we come through again and basically do an emergency variance and fix it for them, and as long as you have basically council agreement that this should be built, that's fine. In the worst case scenario, you have a major litigation going on where, you know, there's stuff in question in court, and we've been through that a couple times as a city. And so, you know, that's why I kind of stood my ground last meeting. Wasn't because I was just trying to be a jerk, that I do that at other times. It was just because I'm really worried here that there's a lot of risk to the city. So I hope people kind of understand that, so.
But again, will it cause any delay in construction?
Well, here's the thing, right?
They don't have their plans
Send
yet,
out their
right?
10-day they can send out their 10-day notices, and we can hold special meetings. Both the planning commission and the council can hold special meetings to move this through more quickly.
Yes.
If that is what's needed. It's, no matter what, it's hard to do it faster than about a month. It's probably gonna take a little longer than that, but we can move it faster. We can move it basically as fast as we can if that's what we wanna do,
Okay.
so.
I don't want to cause them hardship.
Mhm.
is the
Well, I
word.
think everybody wants to cause them hardship, doesn't wanna cause them hardship.
What?
Sorry.
What, Ryan?
Maybe a Freudian slip.
Don't speak
but
for us.
I think we wanna, my number one goal in these things is always to make sure that everybody is kind of protected.
Yeah.
So the city, the homeowner, the contractor, but also the city planner too.
But is this a situation though, Alan, that since we've already gone through the processes, can we retroactively say, hey, you needed to file for this variance too? Or is it one of those things like, we missed it, it's to your benefit?
So what you're saying is, do permits, so this was something that came up in the Nicholas lawsuit, was whether if you're granted a permit without a variance, can you build what that permit says you can build? And there's a whole bunch of cases on that. One of the cases was up there. A permit doesn't allow you to build something contrary to code, only a variance does that. And so they would still end up, even if it were permitted, they would still end up with an illegal structure. So,
And the city can rescind permits a lot easier than they can variances. So a lot of cities go through that, where
Right.
they realize after the fact that someone lied, someone's done something else, and permits get rescinded all the time. So to answer your question, I think they're gonna have to go back through the process. It'll be made a lot easier because they just have to apply for the right one. Their justification for it's right here, so they don't have to make their case at all. But because it is a different application and it's being handled like that, I do think the notice has to go out, and it's gonna be subject to the public hearing in front of the planning commission. I mean, we can accelerate it because we kinda know the result, right? And we know how much resistance there was to the last one. But I think you should go through the regular steps. Since we're starting that way, we should end that way.
thank you. I mean, I appreciate you saying, let's stop this train and do it right, because I really appreciate that, Alan.
Well, it just keeps things in the file the way they should be.
You know,
And I think this is very helpful, right, in a way that I don't know the planning commission couldn't not understand it. And so to make it easy on the applicants, all they got to do is show up and say, did you sign it, right? Because it speaks for itself, and they've gotten all of their other variances anyway.
we need to be doing resolutions like that for every single variance that's coming through.
Well, that's part of the streamlining and probably the betterment of the process going forward, so.
So how do we grease the wheels on this? So how do we make this as painless for the homeowner as possible, and how do we accelerate
It starts with-
timelines that aren't statutorily required.
Yeah, it starts with talking to them and telling them, you know, just spoon feeding what needs to go into the application, right? I don't think we should write it for them, right? Because that's probably going a little bit over the top, right? But wait till that comes in and allow them to do it electronically if they want to take the time to do that while they're on vacation, just to get it going as soon as possible. Wouldn't it be nice if they could get onto the planning commission agenda in April, if we can? I mean, however we can do that to make it work, we'll do that, right? And then it'll be back before you guys in May. And that's about as accelerated a process, I think, as we can get for them. And that will certainly not interrupt construction, right? It's a big hole in the ground, so they've got a ways to go before they're gonna be doing anything that will rely on it.
They also still have to get their DNR and everything, so they still, if they haven't drawn their plans yet, those have to be approved, and that's not a quick process.
We haven't
too.
even
So
got
I
the
don't think
permit to
we're,
review yet,
Yeah.
so I mean, it'll take a while.
so I don't think it should slow them by any means, even if it were.
They're still in
Okay.
planning process, so.
Okay.
And you've rescinded your motion, at least that's what I've noted.
I rescinded it, yeah.
Did you want to
Right.
make a motion to waive the fee on?
I think I made a motion.
I heard
can
you
make
say it.
again, But I don't think I got a
Okay,
second.
well, I'll second the waiving of the fee for this specific one as we erred on the variance that was initially granted.
Okay, any more discussion? All in favor?
Would it,
Opposed?
oh, sorry.
Motion passes.
Could we just make kind of a casual request that they give us at least some sort of, if they don't have final plans, some sort of a sketch of the elevation of how the structure is being expanded in the OHWL, so we can just
To
kind of
include
see
with this?
what's there. What's that?
To include with the,
To include with the application.
And just so you guys kind of as the decision makers, now that it's back in your hands, I'll be more than happy to reach out, Ryan, if you want to get me the email of the folks.
Yeah, I'll do it. I would appreciate, I really don't want to be in the middle of these,
That's
so,
what happened.
please, I really appreciate that, so.
can I ask a question we had another variance that was supposed to be at the planning commission this last month, but the planning commission meeting didn't happen.
Is that the
Wall.
Shifsky
the
variance.
retaining wall?
Yes. Are we going to miss our 60-day window? Because I don't believe they've removed that
We
variance.
sent the letter to extend to 120.
Yeah,
Did
got-
we? Oh, we did the 120.
More
Okay,
months,
we're
yep.
fine. Okay. Never mind then.
We're okay.
Okay. Let's move on to B then.
God.
Go ahead,
That
Ryan.
nightmare is done.
Bring in the circus.
Yes, exactly. So B is amend animal fees and animal code, section 605.
What page is this on? I'm sorry.
10.
Okay.
Sorry, we're just figuring out.
Oh, no,
Our
we'll get
agendas
there
are a little
eventually.
bit understaffed right now, so it's pretty well for how much staff we have. This is just, we're revising, making a few animal code updates. I introduced this last time. Today, we need to do a first reading on it. I think the big summary is this simplifies the code significantly. It removes, the requirement that people get chicken licenses because it's not clear there's any real city interest in controlling that. It makes a number of changes, a number of cleanups, reduces the idea that people can be eliminates the idea that people can be searched for dog pickup devices. So I won't go through it in any more detail. If there's any questions, I tried to incorporate the feedback that you made last time, Bridget, so.
I noticed that, thank you.
You did a nice job, Ryan. That was
Thanks.
good.
Yeah.
Okay, can I have a motion to, what do you want this passed?
Pass as a first reading.
Okay,
So-
can I get a motion to pass this amended animal fee and animal code section 605 for the first reading?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion passes. Good work, Ryan.
A quick question on this one.
Yeah.
It wasn't totally clear to me whether or not you were just sticking things in and out, or if this is a complete redux of 605.
It's a complete redux, and in the workshop agenda, was the markup.
Got it. So
And
this
so
is
I didn't-
essentially new?
It's, it's a replacement of existing animal code.
Which is fine, so we should amend this for the second reading that actually repeals the old.
It doesn't, I can put in like repeals and replaces.
So this all
if you
talks
would
about just
advise.
amending, but if
Yep.
it's a complete supplanting of what's there, we should put a repealer in there,
Is-
just saying we're getting rid of all of what was old and putting in what's,
I will do that.
yeah, well, we can just, that is important
For
for our
second
next.
reading.
So we don't have two 605s kicking around out there.
Yeah, I mean, it says ordinance is amended to read as follows, but I can change it so is ordinance 605 is repealed and replaced with the following, if that you think would be wise.
If you have
Okay.
access to that, then do that.
I have a word processor, so.
Good.
Sorry.
I'm used to writing these things, so it's not, normally what I do here is to say, please put this in the ordinance, so.
Do we vote on that?
Mhm.
Okay.
Thanks,
Yeah, we're
Alan.
good. That was just housekeeping from my perspective.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, we appreciate the,
You're
clean.
still up.
all right, so I'll shut up for
No.
the second half of the meeting.
Okay, so we're on to C, amendment of ordinance 310, administrative appeals.
Yeah, so when we went through a couple of administrative appeals, we found some shortcomings in our appeals process. This makes a number of revisions to clarify the requirements and the procedures for appeals. Since this, I added a section that if somebody is denied an appeal, they can request a variance. And the likely case there would be maybe not different than what we just talked about, but city approves a permit application. City makes a mistake and some code is violated in the permit application. Somebody calls that out, an appeal comes to the city, and we say, well, the appeal is sustained because the application was granted in error, but we give the applicant an opportunity to request a variance or an exception to that. It's a lot of procedure for a town with this many people, but, that's the idea behind that. I also just cleaned up the words in a couple places too, so that's what it is.
Any questions for Ryan? Okay. Would someone like to make a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Do we need to, should that be a little clearer maybe?
Yeah.
Of the motion, maybe we want to,
What are we moving, just moving first reading of this,
second reading.
second reading of this? So technically, under A, then it should be the move, the resolution or motions should be moved to approve second reading of the amendment to ordinances 2014-014-2, 2025-0101. Isn't that what you meant, Bridget?
Mm-hmm, absolutely. Couldn't have said it better myself, Ron.
No, everybody's got to
So
sit down.
assuming that that's
first
the
time through
motion,
these
we still
places.
need a second by my count.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion passes.
Okay, so then the next one here is an ordinance amending the fee schedule to adopt the $300 fee for appeals. And so I will move to adopt ordinance 2024-0102, an ordinance amending the fee schedule. That's my motion.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. And,
And then there's one more here, and that is a resolution approving summary publication of ordinance 2025-0101, and ordinance amending ordinance number 310, titled Administrative Appeals. And this is something that allows us to publish not the full text of the ordinance, I wrote it myself, Alan, if you can look through it, and if after the fact you decide it's not any good, we'll come through and do it again. So,
I read through that part, it's fine. I do think we'll have to change something when you get done looking back a couple of pieces, but go ahead.
okay. So I will move to adopt Resolution 2025-28, approving summary publication of ordinance 2025-0101, and ordinance amending ordinance number 310 titled Administrative Appeals. So,
Okay, I'll second it. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
that's, I think that's the end of the Ryan show.
If it is, if I may, Madam Mayor,
Sure.
I misspoke. Under C, before we got to A and B, I think I cited, or I think I spoke for Bridget when I said that the motion was to approve the amendment of those ordinances that are listed in A. And so just correct the record to say what Bridget meant to say, was that the vote was to approve the second reading of the amendment to ordinance 310 regarding administrative appeals. Right, Bridget?
Yes.
So I'm glad you caught that.
Do we need to second and vote again?
Oh, I'm just correcting the record, because that was
Okay.
technically what the vote was for.
Got it.
And so
Okay.
I didn't see that there was a vote for that. I just went to A and B as opposed
Okay.
to
Okay.
big agenda, little, as separate votes.
Would it hurt if we voted again?
Certainly wouldn't, but
Whomever seconded, want a second again?
Second.
Bridget is still getting the first on that one? Okay, so for the record,
For the record, all in,
Councilmember Spurl moved to approve the second reading of the amendment to ordinance 310 regarding administrative appeals, seconded by Ryan Isley.
okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
We've been corrected.
Thank you. It's good to have you here,
Thank you.
Alan. We need you. Okay, we're on to new business. So next up is interview new applicants for Parks and Natural Resources Committee.
Do you want to get a 3-minute speech from everybody?
I don't care.
Okay.
So we had 2 applicants for the position on the Parks and Natural Resource Committee. One was Margaret Ford and the other was Barton Winter. Does not look like Margaret is here, but Barton, did you want to speak about this? Or do you want to read your letter that you submitted?
No, I'll just say something.
Okay.
Martin Winter, 1 Oaks Lane. And first of all, I just want to make sure that you have my name.
It's
A lot
Winter.
of people have wanted to pluralize my last name,
Right.
and it's Winter, singular.
Mm-hmm.
And I am interested in being a voting member on the Parks and Natural Resources Committee. You've seen me quite a bit here in public forum, and I'm certainly interested in the rinks and the hockey rink and making sure we maintain that. And, you know, I've investigated, I've done work down there. So I've, you know, done a lot more than what I've seen, and that's what I'm concerned. I want to make sure that that's represented, and that, you know, the belief that this is a valuable asset, and we want to keep it. We want to keep it in good shape. We want to make sure the ice is kept in good shape. I've also done some research on the tennis courts, and you know, I was around in this neighborhood, and I just want to make sure you know I was here since, been living in the same address since 1976, essentially, with a few brief hiatuses. And so my parents basically have been paying property tax here for quite a long time, one of the longer-lived residents here. Not saying they're the longest lived, but we've enjoyed being here, and we've made use of the facilities. You know, we used the tennis courts when they first came in the late 70s, and they were, you know, really nice, and we liked them. And I, you know, probably am a little unhappy with the plastic link surface, although I haven't even played on it. But, you know, I did criticize a little bit that the dimensions were not exact. And in fact, a couple of years ago, when it was initially being investigated, we had one extra tile on one of the sides of the service court. So I was just saying it was a little lax in that area. And the fact that we put pickleball lines in there also displaced the tennis lines. So there's something there to consider.
Okay.
I'm also interested in, of course, the drainage issue on Teig Schmidt. And, you know, I've done a little bit of investigation. I am somewhat concerned about the fact that maybe people want to alter the park just for
Okay,
the.
all right. Thank you, Barton. Thank
Okay.
you. I appreciate you speaking. I'm going to read what Margaret Ford has submitted as well. Dear Parks Committee members, Mayor Jennifer, and City Council, thank you for your invitation to address the council on April 8th about my interest in joining the Parks Committee. I have a prior engagement on that date. Please consider my written application below. I believe the committee's goals, past accomplishments, and work in progress are in great alignment with Birchwood's vision to continue to improve the city's beautiful green spaces and recreational areas. I commend the city's efforts to highlight safety as a priority. I applaud the committee's success in obtaining grant money for Teig Schmidt's improvements. Work continues on managing our tree population. I'm happy to join in all of the work noted above. I am eager to help investigate and seek funding for projects that will benefit Birchwood's parks and natural resources. Best regards, Margaret Ford. So we've heard from Barton and from Margaret. Does anybody have any discussion or questions?
I'm really glad we got, thank you for applying, both
Yes.
Margaret and Barton.
Right. It's good to have two people interested. If not, do you have any questions or anything? Kathy, Ryan?
Well, my personal thought is that the more the merrier when it comes to our parks committees in general to get individuals involved. I know Mr. Winter is very busy and helps us with a lot of the parks, but I know he will be an active volunteer in general. So I also know that Margaret had helped us a lot in the, as her time as mayor, working on several grants for the forest and tree grants that we ended up getting the last few years. And money will be good, so that's my thought.
Okay. Anybody else have any comments, questions? Okay, would someone like to make a motion on who they would like to recommend for Parks Committee?
Hey, Madam Mayor,
Yes.
one thing that wasn't in the preamble to this, it says interview new applicants, but I don't think anyone ever mentioned if there's more than one spot open.
Oh, I can answer that question. We have one spot open. It's a 2-year term. It's,
So I'm just looking at clarification for the thousands of viewers that are
Yes.
just curious how many spots there are open.
that's right. We have one open spot for an individual who, well, it was actually Jennifer. When she became mayor, she came off of the Parks Committee as a voting member for that. And then Bridget replaced Justin as the other council member with myself as we're the liaisons for the Parks Committee. So we have 5 voting members for this.
Yep, I'm just clarifying because
Thank
it's
you.
not clear from
Yes.
the agenda how
You're
many
right.
people you're considering for how many spots.
Yes, we have one spot
Thank you,
available.
Ellen.
Got it.
Okay.
Well, we certainly have 2 dedicated people that want this spot. I will make a motion to hire, I guess, Margaret. Appoint, thank you. Thank you. Appoint Margaret to this position just because of her experience as mayor, her experience in seeking out grants, her experience in really running Birchwood for a couple of years. And so a difficult decision, but that's what I would propose.
Can I get a second on that?
Second, Ryan.
Okay, any further discussion? Let's vote. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Anybody?
Exciting crowd.
Okay, motion passes. Barton, thank you so much for your
Yeah.
interest.
Well, I'm not so happy about her coming in like that, and she's had her shot as the mayor. And, you know, anyway, her perspective is different than mine, and mine is entirely different than the rest of the committee. And, you know, that's why I've been here all the time complaining, because it seems like there's, you know, there's one trend, and that's people that don't really use the athletic facilities very much, if at all, and letting things go.
Okay,
Well,
well,
anyway, probably would have been ideal for me not to be, you know, really not to have to, but.
well, thank you.
I just realized today, I don't, how long did you know that she was in the running?
She had submitted her letter, I believe, right after the newsletter came out, is my understanding from what Teresa had said, but I don't know.
I don't know. I just saw it in the packet today.
Yeah, our packet came out yesterday, so I can't verify specifically what day.
Ash path fencing.
Yep, well, thank you. Barton, we really appreciate your work in the city. We appreciate that you're a dedicated volunteer.
Yeah,
Thank you so much for applying.
Thank you.
and I guess there's still another item there? Can we
We're moving
bring that
on,
up, or at all?
the hockey
I believe
net.
it's coming up here, nets and such. I think it's right after the fencing, right?
That's H,
H.
at the bottom of that list.
Are we allowed to do that?
If you want to move it up just for the benefit of Barton. or
Let's do
Mr.
it.
Winter,
Yeah.
that's fine.
Okay, let's discuss.
That's all you're here for, Barton?
Yeah.
Let's discuss letter H then, the approve hockey net donation and $1,000 net budget. Kathy?
Yes, let me find my
Yeah.
page.
No, let me get us out of order here. It's 58.
Thank you.
Mhm.
I wasn't scrolling far enough here. Okay. All right. I'm sorry I spelled your last name wrong. I'll correct that in my future ones. So Barton has graciously reached out regarding hockey nets. He and Jennifer had reviewed the ones we currently have in our, well, it was in storage now at this point, but the ones that we had on the ice rink this year. And then he had purchased 2 nets and had requested that the Parks Committee accept that as a donation. So I wanted to include that, which is the receipts are in there from the ones that he purchased. He did purchase it during a end-of-season sale, which I understand why we did that. But I am moving to accept the gift of one of the hockey nets with the value of $247, which is what the resolution 2025-29 is, the resolution to approve acceptance of a gift for that one net. So if we want to do that
I'll
one
second.
first.
Oh,
Second?
I'll second.
Fabulous.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, motion carries.
And then the other portion of this one as well is that the Parks Committee had also reviewed the hockey nets and then also the tennis nets. As Barton had mentioned when he was walking, there are a few areas on that fence that is being held together with zip ties. It has been several years since we've replaced those nets, and we found a good option for those nets potentially through the Parks Committee. So they had put together a budget of replacing the hockey nets that needed to be replaced, as well as the other at $1,000. I am suggesting we leave that $1,000 for the total of, it would now be 1 hockey net because we've approved the gift of 1, and then also replacing the 2 nets that we have for tennis. And then there are 2 anchors that are in the tennis court that is used to keep the tennis net lower for when it's being used for pickleball. Those anchors have come loose and need to be re-cemented in. So the $1,000 should cover all of that. So I moved that we approve the Parks Committee to spend up to $1,000 on the replacement of
2 tennis nets and 1 hockey net. And I did not include the anchors, but as fixing those tennis courts.
Is this something coming out of the,
Out of the special revenue, yes.
okay. Then I will move in favor of adopting Resolution 2025-30, $1,000 budget cap.
You seconding that?
Oh, did you move?
I had moved, yes.
Then I'll second.
Okay.
Any further
Thank you for your
discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
All right,
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. I just have one comment. While the city is very appreciative of gifts, donations, they need to be approved prior to purchase. We need to have some sort of knowledge of what's going on in the city, so although it's very gracious and generous of people to want to donate things, and like I said, we are appreciative, we do need to know that in advance of purchase. We can't be retroactively reimbursing people without any knowledge of their purchase. So I don't want to see that happening again. Okay?
Right, and I, just aside that, I also submitted some board replacement requests. I gave that to the mayor and.
Yep, that actually I'm sent over to the Parks Committee because we are going to do a review, our annual review. I actually think I have my binder of all the Parks Committee walkthroughs of all of the parks equipment to confirm that everything is in working order and any of the boards and/or posts or playground equipment. What else do we have? Picnic tables, et cetera, that everything is in good shape and any repairs are set up on a list so that our maintenance team can start working on them for the summer.
Thank you, Barton. Thank you for the donation.
Yes,
Yes.
thank you. And thank you, Kathy. Since we are out of order here anyway, seeing Mr. Mitchell, would you like to speak? We'll go on to letter G, approve funding and 2025 Music in the Park schedule.
Do we know what page? I'm sorry.
Oh, thank you, Madam Mayor and Council.
You're welcome.
I'm Alan Mitchell. I'm a member of the Parks Committee, and I also help organize Music in the Park each summer, and I'm happy to report there's another Music in the Park series coming up this summer. All the same groups we had last year. They've all got their favorites, and they all love coming to Birchwood, so it looks just like last year. Thanks to the council, we have $3,700 budgeted for Music in the Park. $3,000 of that goes to the musicians, $300 a week for 10 weeks, and then there's $700 beyond that for whatever kinds of cost. 2 years ago, we spent $150 on about one of those A-frame signs that I put out on the corner at Century the weekend of the concert. Last year, we had an 11th week of music, so we had another $300. And both times we came back to the council and got approval to do that. Even though there's a continuing resolution that says $3,700 each year, but we've come back and got approvals. So I went to the Parks Committee at our last meeting and said, anybody have any ideas how we might improve the aesthetics down there in our hockey rink, which we affectionately refer to as the Birchwood Ice Palace? But the two ideas that we came up with was to maybe get like a 12 by 12 foot of indoor-outdoor carpeting for the musicians to stand on, and then maybe some kind of canopy, which not only makes it kind of cool to have the musicians under that, but we had some groups caught in the rain last year, so it will provide some protection as well. So I've done a little checking on the cost, and I think for $300 we can get both of those, a carpet and a canopy of some sort. I talked to Jim, and he helps every Sunday setting up and taking down, and he said, shouldn't be a problem, and we can roll the carpet up and store it in the warming house, and the canopy comes down. So I don't think we really need a resolution, but maybe a motion saying the Parks Committee can work with the city administrator and Jim probably to implement both of those for a total cost of $300, which comes out of the already authorized $3,700.
Okay, thank you. Would someone
Okay.
like to make that motion?
I'm happy to make that motion for spending, you said up to $300, Alan?
up to $300 coming out of the 3,700.
So up to $300 for a canopy and indoor-outdoor carpet for music in the park.
Can we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Hey, thanks for your continued work on music in the park.
Thank you.
It is
It's really
such,
fun, isn't
it is such a
Oh,
great
I was
time.
gonna ask you, and I should have asked this beforehand, I know we had sought some grant funding from, I guess we didn't have a motion on this, we had sought some grant funding for music in the park, or we are seeking some grant funding. Is that so, you probably don't know this, but
Well, I have talked to Sue Kapsner. She
Yep.
contacted me, and I see that that's on the consent agenda here.
the only, I was just gonna, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. I was just gonna
Wanna
ask
cover
if, I was just gonna ask if there's any issue with the grant. Well, the grant I think would be for next year,
Right.
so that wouldn't apply to this at all. I was just gonna ask if we can fund something from a grant that we've already allocated funding for, but I think that would be for next year anyway, so this probably doesn't matter, so.
As far as I understand, it's for next year, plus it's to look beyond music in the park.
Right.
You know, art, other arts and things in the city hall here. But I've been in contact with Sue and
Got, okay,
continue to do that.
well, good.
It'd be lovely to do some music in the city
Parking
hall
lot.
during the winter.
Yeah.
I would come to that.
Yep.
We can ring the bell.
So we're so off topic, but yes, Sue Kapsner is doing a lovely job, and she's got great ideas, so.
Can I take you aside on one other item? And
Sure.
You don't have to act on the item, but it'll let me leave.
Yeah.
Bridget has her motion, a resolution. I want to say that I went to the Birchwood Dock Association meeting on Saturday, and Mary Sue Simmons, another Parks Committee member, was there too. And we mentioned that was going to come up, and I can transfer to you the information that the Dock Committee would be delighted to have the Parks Committee handle the money and account for where it's going and solicit ideas from the Dock Committee, the Dock Association members, so that you have their support for that.
Thanks, Al.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. Okay,
Bef-
well, go ahead.
I can get rid of
Yes.
that, yeah.
Next. Hi, John, would you like to come to the mic? Are you here to speak or no?
If you have questions.
Oh, okay. Then let's move on to, where is John's?
Say, since we're kind of not quite on the next agenda item, I've been in communication with another gentleman we'll be talking about, but not two. And so apparently Therese said, don't bother. And so when I said, do you want to come by and show off? He's like, well, I'm already mostly home, but he offered to come back. He could be here by 8:30, but I just questioned whether or not we've got enough
No.
to keep us busy
No.
until 8:30.
No, he's
Okay.
fine.
I
I
mean,
will say for the record that he offered to do an informal meet and greet, assuming things go the way we want to, just to introduce himself. So if that's acceptable to you guys, I'll tell him that that's.
yeah, I don't.
Yeah, that's,
Put on his jammies. Go
Okay.
for it.
I mean, I had a list of questions.
Oh,
I cannot
save it for
find
later.
John's, where is it,
Good
you
night, Al.
guys?
Come again?
what are we talking about? I'm sorry, I don't know the
Now on
topic.
Mr. Manship, right?
Yeah, but where is it?
Plumbing,
That's
right?
number
Item E, consider a new water
E,
line
okay,
locator for water
sorry.
superintendent, yeah.
I just could not see
Letter
that.
E.
Yep. Okay, there's a resolution with this. Okay, and where is that even?
Yeah, it's in there.
We'll get back to page
Thanks,
numbers
Alan.
soon.
Page 42 was the rail fence, I think, so somewhere after that.
Okay.
Yeah, it's, well, I guess I don't have the number.
Sorry,
I can say
John.
what it is.
There we go. It's around page 50, you guys.
I thought it'd be easier having paper. but
Starts
of
at
course, there's no
47.
numbers on paper.
Okay,
We'll get there eventually.
yep, okay. 47.
I have
So-
questions about this.
Okay, go for it.
Did you want to present anything for it, or are you good for questions here?
Present to the council of a request for a better locator, a good locator. Part of it's because of the new lift station that's going in. They need to know exactly where those lines are underground before they start digging and remodeling. We've got multiple requests for water service locates. One of them was just, I worked on it Saturday, worked on it yesterday, was there again today. Finally found it or got it located. These lines are put in 1963, 1965, and in 60 years, they've put up fences and mailboxes and other metal structures that screw up our ability to locate things. And what this is a line tracer. We'd be able to trace the lay of the line going from the house out to the street and be able to locate these things better,
What are we using
more
currently?
accurately.
How are we doing this currently?
Pardon?
How are we doing this currently, like?
Divining
what are we using?
rods.
It's a divining rod, basically a divining rod,
But it's
using
ripped
2
off.
wires, and divining rod will give us, and I've got 60 years of experience with City of Birchwood, and so put that expertise to use and put things together, and you can get a rough estimate. But there's some of them, like the one 310, 312, was super difficult to locate. There was all kinds of metal parts, car parts, and we've got a metal locator that will locate the curb stop, which is the valve at near the street. But it's a metal locator, so on that residence, there was brake drums and springs and fence posts and other miscellaneous things over the last 60 years in there. So it just makes it pretty much impossible. Ended up having Capras located, and we were able to get a range of where the line is. And then once we get that, then we could find the curb stop and get the water shut off. The problem was they'd broken, they're remodeling the house, and the people working on the system had broken the water line, and so water was spraying. It becomes an emergency type thing, and
How long did that
this would make life better. It's something that's probably a 15-year lifespan. I did talk with the contractor, if you see on your notes. They'll give a lifetime of the unit warranty and expertise and training, which I think is a real good value to the city.
Just a couple questions. Who will own this? Will it be the city, under the city's
City
ownership?
will own it.
And then the next question is, where will it be stored?
Probably under my control.
Okay.
It's, the thing is to have it readily available when, like with this water service, they break this line and it's gushing. You need to be able to react fairly quickly and get things contained.
Are there concerns, Alan, with having equipment like this stored under private control?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a concern, I guess.
Also,
of
he can
mine,
never
too.
vacation.
I mean, one of the obvious ones would be, let's say you have one of these emergency situations and your preferred contractor vendor is not available to take care of it.
Yeah.
So you've got the tool, but he's got the tool, so someone else has to get brought in, and there's no tool. So I know that's remote, John, I'm not besmirching your.
They can get a hold of me
I know,
pretty readily.
I have to point out that there is some risk there by having it be under the control of a contractor.
So when you're talking about water lines, John, are you talking only from the street to the valve?
All of the system. This is-
But what's the city's responsibility and what's the homeowner's responsibility?
The homeowner needs to know, the city finds the curb stop. The homeowner or the contractor or somebody will call and need a water shut off, like the one down here on Wildwood Avenue. And they need the water shut off, we have to go find the curb stop and shut the water off. And we charge them $150 to do that. The city charges $150 to do
And
that.
so this is only to find the curb stop?
Well, there's also the need for, if you've ever done digging on your property where you need a line located,
Isn't
so
that 1-800 Gopher or whatever that is?
they get called.
We're
So-
part of Gopher.
Yeah.
Oh.
The city is a piece of Gopher.
Yeah. So if you called the city to have your water line like I did, they never came out. So
Oh.
I still don't know where my water line is from when I moved in, but I had called in to have all the utilities checked to figure out where everything was, and the water was the only one that never showed up. So it would be useful to have the ability to find it quickly.
but it also has the use of other things. But
Part of the problem is that they, like Excel is replacing a ton of telephone poles. And all of a sudden you get this call, locate call, and they're digging down 7, 8 feet to put those poles in the ground. A big liability to the city and to the residents to have those damaged. So if we know where the service is, where the water service is, then we can have the pole one side or another moved a different direction. The nice thing, to me, the things wander, I don't know if we're around the city, pretty good system, but things do wander. And I kind of feel like control-wise, it'd have a better control to have it with me.
So I know we have later, which is, I'm jumping again, I'm sorry, but we have a keyless entry for the city hall as part of the items that we're going to be discussing. I am curious if we could potentially put this in the city in a locker in the event that you ever decide you want to do a vacation.
In the storeroom down
Yeah.
here.
Well, I would say not even that, like, I think it would stay here unless.
No, in general, like,
Yeah.
it would live here, but my reasoning is not necessarily because I don't trust John, it's, my reasoning is, I want John to not be the only option in the event we need to turn off water fast, and John happens to be out of town. That someone who knows what they're doing
There's a problem.
can potentially, well, I would anticipate that there is,
Training-wise with the unit, operation-wise, it takes,
so it's not easy to use.
it's not like going starting up your car, no.
Well, I mean, anybody we were to hire, John, would hopefully have some sort of understanding of
hope,
how to
but-
use this, or have a tool like this themselves. Here's what I'm uncomfortable about, $6,000, so it's an expensive tool, or $5,600. That's probably today, so let's see what it is after midnight tonight.
Yeah, you're right.
And then the personal use of it, because you do have your own plumbing business. And so I wouldn't want to use a city asset being used for personal reasons.
That's not what it's for.
No, I'm not saying that's what you would use it for, but the option would be there if it's in your truck. So that's why, if something like this was purchased by the city, I would want it under strict city control. Unless I'm completely off base, I mean.
That makes sense.
I assume it has a life frame of how long it lasts for, and I would anticipate the fewer times you're using it, the longer it will last.
Could city council members play with it?
Use-wise is probably 3 or 4 times a week.
For locating,
Pardon?
for locating things here.
Locating, normally, that's what it would come up. There's been 3 so far this week.
So what were the 3 this week?
Pardon?
What were the 3 this week?
There's,
I mean, it's only Tuesday.
telephone poles, 2 telephone poles, the city lift station, and Wildwood, between Wildwood and Lake Avenue, across from your house,
Is that the average, 3, 4 a week, all year?
quite often. But in the winter time, it slows down. This winter, they did quite a few telephone poles.
And were all of those chargeable events?
The telephone poles are not,
Okay.
the city mains are not, the residents. If we have to shut the water off, or if we just locate, we don't charge for just to locate. Same as like Monterey, White Bear, Oakdale. They don't charge for finding
Go
where the
for
line
separate.
is. What the residents need to know where the line is for somebody doing footings or digging something down, putting these helical piers that they put down when they put an addition or a post on their house. Somebody was doing one on,
But that's the homeowner's cost, right? Not
Well,
the city's.
through the gopher, because the city is in charge
There's
of
no
locating those
charge.
lines, there's no fee for that.
there's no fee. If you charge a fee, then they won't call.
Yeah.
But
They
is there
won't locate, and
some,
then they damage the facility.
some reimbursement to somebody because we're a part of Gopher? I mean, is there any money
I don't think
floating around
there
here?
is any money for that.
There's no charge for Gopher.
No, I mean, as far as like, how do they pay the utilities for said gopher locations?
We
They
pay.
don't.
We pay
We
city
basically
pays.
provide John's services.
for
and
free
we're-
for that.
We're required to provide it
So
at
we
no
require,
cost.
we provide it.
State law, and we actually tried to charge for it, and the person who reads all the state laws found it and took it out, so, me. Yeah, so that's just something you pay as a city, so.
So if we were to purchase this, where would What account would it come out of? We didn't budget for this, correct?
I mean,
did not.
I would propose that this come out of the water fund, and I think we have some buffer there and some flexibility. I'm a little concerned with the cost and the storage too, but I also don't like to say we shouldn't, I feel like we so often don't buy things we need in this town.
Well, yeah, but I mean, is this the right one? Like, I just did a quick VLOC 3 Pro alternatives, and they're all $1,500 and below. And so I don't know, like, the quality, or like what is
Do
a
we wanna-
minimally viable product here?
Do we want to take a month, Ryan, and just evaluate
I think
this?
so, like, I
That
mean,
would be
I'm not
probably good. It doesn't sound like this is an emergency, like,
It's not an emergency, no.
but I do think it sounds to me
Yeah.
like everybody would like to kind of just do a little due diligence for a month.
Okay,
It's okay with you?
I've done various research on this thing, and you can buy a Yugo, if you remember those.
A what?
Yugo car.
Oh,
They were throwaway cars, they were like a $3,500 throwaway car, but you get what you pay for. I've tried other ones, other locators. This is what works.
Have you used
It
this
is expensive.
locator? Have you used this particular one, John?
I have,
Okay.
and I've used other ones. I've used some of the other cities, and
So this
Okay.
looks like it's battery operated, is that right?
it is.
Well,
I think though, it needs to live at the city and be plugged in for the city. But that's what.
that's fine, but then we have other things we need to think about if that's the case.
Yeah.
I mean, we have to figure out how we're gonna store it, how it's gonna be secured here.
Mhm.
I can't think through all that right now.
Yeah, I
So it
think,
sounds like we need a month to,
yeah, I think we need
to
to table
figure
it
this
for a
out.
month.
Because it has to be convenient for John to get it, but it also has to be secure, so. Yeah, can we just think about this?
And it's
Would
gotta
be
be
okay?
charged up, so when you go to use it, it's charged up, so
Right.
how do
needs
we
to plug in.
maintain it? Just something
Right.
else up, how do you have to do?
Right.
But then,
Ideally, the person who's bringing it back is plugging it in. But I
Correct.
don't know if that happens at your house or not, but it doesn't happen at mine, so.
All right, can we just, thank you for coming. Can we put this on next month's agenda and we'll revisit it
something
then?
to look at, yeah, it's something coming down the pike. It's just that more and more locates are coming out, and it just becomes cumbersome.
I understand.
And it's like I say, with this lift station, they need to know real close on what they're doing, and
Right.
Is this something we could charge partly against the lift station grant? Nobody probably knows that, and I would guess not, but,
I don't think so.
Okay.
They're pretty strict standards
Yeah.
through the EPA.
okay.
All right, we will revisit this next month and we'll get an answer for you. Thank
there
you.
may be some grants available. There's rural water service
Okay,
is one of the places to take a look at. There may be some grants available which would help the city,
thanks, John.
Rural Water Association.
Okay,
The beauty of this one is it comes with the warranty and the training. You
okay,
can buy it on Amazon and you don't get all that. I think that's valuable. And like I say, it's not like starting up your car. There's some training, schooling, education to go with it.
So if we have one other person who doesn't go on vacation at the same time as John.
And do the cities around us have this already, John?
Pardon?
Do the cities around us have this? Does White Bear, does Matamidi, does
They do.
Willerny?
Willerny does not.
Willerny, I was gonna say, we can't get behind Willerny.
okay. We'll table this till next month. John, we'll have a decision for you next month. Thank you. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
All right.
Back up to B.
Phew, yeah, here
42,
we go.
I think.
B, review quote for additional rail fence on Ash Path. Kathy?
Yes, so we had done fencing on one side of Ash Path after we had done the survey over, I think it took over 2 years to get our
43.
surveys done. Actually, it was probably 3 because it was before we started, right? So we had a survey done on Ash Path to determine all of the path's borders. And due to that, we found that the city's path was meandering very close to some property lines, and very far away from others, so we had redone the location of the path to kind of fit more snugly within our area. But we put up a fence on one side of the path, but hadn't done the other side. The other side, we don't have as big of an issue as far as currently cutting those corners, but I would like to be able to remove those survey lines that are the pink flag things. So I am recommending that, like we have on J Path and some of the other paths, we have a separate split rail fence portions along that line to prevent citizens and property lines from being mixed. And so we're not cutting those corners with the path eventually when it's path of least resistance to do that. So we had requested that Ron and Jim give us a quote for materials and labor for doing that. They actually did the one on J-Path. I experienced them watching or digging those holes and everything, so I know they can do it. And I believe they did the other side of Ash Path as well. But I am suggesting that we do similar to the little graph that is on page 43 of just doing the various corners. There's the new fence, 2-rail cedar. That's an example. That's not a fence that we're putting in. It's just the 2 corners and then 3 additional pieces along that side just to delineate that line that we have so we don't lose that survey line.
So with how this fence is laid out, would it be possible to do some sort of Birchwood slalom?
Maybe.
Yeah, I really like how you laid that out. Does anybody have any questions for Kathy about the
No.
project?
I like it.
Have we covered it off with Bev? Is she okay?
Bev did talk to, Mary Sue talked to Bev, and Bev was asking about the barbed wire fence that's back there. So I have volunteered to remove the barbed wire fence if we get approved to do this, so I will go out on the 26th and take down that fence for her if she,
But is she okay with
yeah, it
this?
sounds like yes.
Well, this isn't on her property. It would be on the city's property on the east.
No, I know that, but she had expressed some concern. She wasn't sure how it would look on
Oh.
her property, et cetera.
I
Yeah,
see.
she had been, I had mentioned to Mary Sue, and Mary Sue had talked to her directly and said that she was okay with. Initially, she was concerned regarding the fence being a full fence all the way around with
Right.
wildlife, et cetera, but it's still
Okay,
leaving
so we're
that.
good. That's
Yeah.
great.
And $27 an hour is a very good rate for 2
Yeah,
people
for
doing
labor.
this, for this labor rate, so very good rate.
Yep, and that's
Okay.
just our staff doing it, so that was the cost to do that. So I'm recommending that we take that fund out of the special revenue fund, which is for the parks, to then put up those fences. So, and finish that
Is there
specific path.
a resolution, or is this just, you want to make a motion?
I'm gonna make a motion. This came in after,
Okay.
it was, I believe, we got
That's
it
fine.
Friday, so.
I just am
So I'll make a
supportive.
motion that we have up to $1,002. I actually will just round this up to $1,050, just to make it
Okay.
a little bit of a gap for taxes, et cetera, for materials potentially, so that they can put in those fencing
I'll second.
along Ash.
Okay, any more discussion? All in favor?
Oh,
Oh.
one more
Whoop,
thing.
whoop, yeah.
Sorry. I don't
There
vote.
is a tree or a root that sticks out of this path that they spray painted orange that I have tripped over
Oh,
so many times.
yeah,
you
I'm
go
gonna
there
go up
today?
there with my,
That run through, I ran through there
We're
today.
gonna go-
It's still a problem?
Well,
Because
I have-
Jim took care of them.
there's
Okay.
a lot of orange paint there.
No, he took
Yeah.
care of them.
Okay,
Well,
well,
I'll double check.
if
but-
not, I'm gonna
Go
go,
trip a
I'm gonna
little
go
bit.
hit it with
I mean, not like
An
little
axe when I
trips,
get a
like
chance.
full-fledged
Yeah.
face plant
So,
trips.
2 were spray painted by a concerned resident, and then Jim went in and chopped them down, from what I understand.
okay.
Cut them down.
I'll
to
go
the
through there
ground.
tomorrow, and if
Okay.
not, I'll go up there with
Oh.
many tools and knock them down, and
Okay.
then just take care of it, so.
So we have a second. Are we ready to vote?
I had to say that before I forgot about it.
It is all I, but
No.
Yeah.
he
Aye.
interrupted.
Aye. There you go.
Okay, motion passes. Let's move on to C, review street sweeping estimates. So Therese put this together and told her there was no need for her to be at the meeting tonight. So she got two estimates, one from Nugent and one from McPhillips, who used to do our street sweeping.
What,
The recommendation is twice a year to do street sweeping, spring and fall. We have $4,000 currently budgeted for street sweeping.
I would
Total?
still just do it twice, even if we
Total.
have a budget.
So if we went with the cheapest quote, it would take care of one street sweep, and then we'd have the extra 500 to put towards the next one.
Who was the one we got last year that like went for $2,000 worth and then ran out of gas and quit?
Yeah, I don't know about that.
Because
We
I've,
don't want to hire them.
No, but it wasn't McPhillips.
No, it wasn't.
yeah, it might have been Nugent, I don't know,
I
but
think it was the people who did our road
like,
last year.
Yeah, I don't know, but
I don't remember though.
there are options. There's been talk of grants coming down the pike for street sweeping as well. So
Really?
if we did it this year twice, if we can continue to do it twice a year, you know, it benefits our lake, which we're, right, trying to preserve and keep clean. All that, since our roads are in such bad condition, all the gravel and asphalt from the roads just washes down, right? So street sweeping,
Salt and sand. too.
correct, and street sweeping can prevent that pollution going into the lake, as well as all the organic materials that are left after
Okay.
the leaves fall and
And
that.
it looks like both of these are doing haul away as opposed to pushing it to the side, right?
Correct.
Well, I would move to hire Mike McPhillips.
McPhillips?
Just a question, do we know why he was a prior contractor, and why he wasn't, or,
Yes.
and would it be helpful in our decision-making?
He had a bad experience with the city.
Okay.
I could, okay, well, so he's.
But Therese has spoken with him and assured him that he will not have that same experience.
Okay,
She did some sweet talking.
She did,
all right, so it's not a performance issue on his,
correct.
And just to clarify, Kathy, when your motion is for both spring and fall?
Initially, mine is for spring. I am open to potentially doing fall as well. Ideally, I would like to be able to do both. But I'm gonna start with spring and see how we do for our lift station. I'm holding
That's-
up a lot of my money for,
That's not the worst idea,
Okay.
is to defer that, but let's make sure it comes back then.
yeah.
in
Okay,
the
we'll
midsummer,
revisit
and
it.
We have a little more budget information, hopefully the price is still
That's what
good
my hope
then,
is.
but if it's not, we can live without street sweeping, I guess.
Everyone
so-
go outside with your own push broom.
So if we're gonna go
Oh,
forward.
no, that's why I have a kid.
That's right.
So the 3,500 actually is, which is what this quote is actually less than the 4,000 that we have in the budget for street sweeping. So,
Can I make a recommendation for that
Sure.
additional? So the street sweeping typically also has a vacuum thing to pick up all of that. We need to vacuum out there's various culverts along the drainage areas that are full of leaves right now from winter runoff, et cetera. We might want to see if they could vacuum those out when they're doing that.
that's a good idea.
And we also have, I believe, the rain garden that's on, oh, my map's gone. One of the easements has a rain garden. I can't recall which one it is, but that one needed to be vacuumed out because it's full of gunk at this point. So if that additional $500 can be used to clean out some of
Okay.
that and vacuum out some of the debris and leaves and
okay.
salt, sand, et cetera, that's.
Could you contact Therese and ask her to
Yeah.
call him back? Okay.
And she can confirm that they have the vacuum tool. I don't see that listed here, so if they don't, then that's something that I would potentially like to roll into finding to
Okay.
clean those out, because they're quite full in quite a few areas.
Okay. Okay, would someone like to make a motion to approve street sweeping?
Kathy did.
I did.
You did just for spring?
Yes.
Is that
I
what
did.
you said?
Mhm.
I
Okay.
think it might be helpful to amend it to say to spend up to $4,000 with McPhillips. Right now.
Oh, okay, with vacuuming, yes, if they have the ability to vacuum out those areas, or the various collection.
The suck truck.
Yes, that one,
Okay.
Up to $4,000.
up to $4,000.
Okay, can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion passes. Yeah, if you wouldn't mind contacting Teresa, that would be great, Kathy.
Did you refer to that as the suck truck?
Next up is D, review estimate for 2025 Top Green Lawn Service. So, I'm not sure what we paid last year, honestly.
I do know last year we were doing weekly trims and we talked about moving to every other week.
And we do have the, was it 2,000 or is it 2,200 from the soccer group?
2,000.
2,000.
2,000?
And I'm thinking if it's, their 2,000, was that field cut every other week? I don't think it was cut every week.
We had True Green doing all of the mowing last year, so I
Right.
believe I thought it was weekly that they were doing.
They were doing weekly last year,
And that
but
was
it
all of our
was pretty
parks.
expensive,
Right.
but people also really liked
Yeah,
it.
they did a great job. I'm just looking, when you look at the invoice here, it's broken down into
Mm-hmm.
Teig Schmitz, that's one thing, and then the rest, if you look at that.
Yes.
So that's why I'm asking if it was weekly or bi-weekly.
Oh,
how we
that's
did
what you,
that.
I don't recall as far as how often, I bet Justin would know, because he
It wa-
lived across the
It
street,
was
so we can reach out
weekly,
to
yeah,
him.
but
Was it Teichschmidt was every week?
it was, I thought the whole city was every week. It was,
Oh.
there was a lot of mowing.
Okay.
Might have been all the other parks one week and then
I
Teichschmidt
mean,
the other.
we can also, the other thing is you can start out every other week, and then if grass starts growing really fast, we can
Yeah.
bump up the frequency. I mean,
Can we also tell them not to mow if it's dry?
yeah, so maybe, do we want to just have authorize up to weekly mowing, but ask that city staff kind of play it by ear a little bit?
Right, because if it's really dry, we don't want to pay
So,
for mowing.
And I don't want to micromanage like mowing, honestly.
Well, if
No,
we did the
agreed.
weekly mow where 1 week is Teichschmidt and 1 week is the other parks, because I think it's about equal sized.
yes, that would make
Across that.
sense to me, to do it
And
bi-weekly.
then see if Teichschmidt is growing excessively long, in which case maybe we have to have them hit that as every week and the other parks every other, because
Right, I think I would feel like Teig Schmitz could be, if needed, since we're gonna have the soccer kids there, it could be once a week, but the rest, I could see every other week, because it's just the little easements and, along the
do
road.
we
and that.
know what days they do soccer practices?
No.
Okay. I assume it's not during the day though, right? Because the kids have to get there somewhere and I presume none of them drive.
Right.
So, do you have any idea, Ryan, as to what dates they actually do the soccer for all the different age
I
groups?
don't.
All right. Well, I'm gonna assume that we can just pick a date when we convene with the soccer group to figure out the day that's not the exact same day that you're,
Yeah.
where we don't end up with, if it starts raining, you have half a field. So,
Okay.
but I would move to do that and use our $2,000 from the soccer group to offset that, because that's what we were hoping to do. Last year, we did not do the fall cleanup or spring cleanup, and we did not do fertilizer weed control. That ends up in the lake. We don't want to do
Right.
that.
Okay, so this would just be for mowing, this mowing, blowing, whatever, for Teig Schmitz and the rest. So what's the motion going to read? You're gonna authorize it?
Was I gonna
Oh,
do-
I don't know, whoever. Are we gonna do it up, should we authorize for once a week for both? And then,
Well, so if we were doing, let's say it's once a week and it's every other that we're doing, that would be $400 per week. There are approximately 10 weeks during the summer months.
yeah,
So as far as, that would be $4,000, which would be, I don't know how much we authorized last year, though.
So are we committing to a price for the whole season every other week? Because I think it would be a better deal if we could call it week by week.
I don't know if
think
they
that's
will
the way
allow
it
us.
works.
Yeah, I don't think Top Green's gonna go for that.
Okay.
We could ask, I guess, but.
I would assume if we reach out to them and say we need to suspend for this week because it's really dry, that they would potentially do that, but I assume that they would want a contract, at least when it's a homeowner, they do.
Yeah, I like that idea, Kathy, of doing Teichschmidt's one week and the rest the
Yeah.
next.
I would hope it doesn't grow fast enough. I think it depends on how wet it is, basically, so.
Right.
But if we want to try that and need to add
Yeah,
more, I don't think they'll be opposed to adding. But I have a
Right.
feeling they'd be more upset about removing. We did mow into fall last year, so I don't know if we want to do more than the 10 weeks of summer, but
This says through mid-October, weekly mowing through mid-October.
so that is longer then. 'Cause that would be,
that's just part of, that's, oh yeah, you're right there. Okay.
So calendar-wise, when would they start mowing? Do we know? June, you think? Okay. After the pollinators are all happy? All right, that'd be 1, 2, 3,
16, 18 weeks.
18 weeks.
14 minimum, yeah, probably 16 more reasonably.
So,
and I'm assuming we still have plenty of other things for Jim and Ron to be doing around
yeah.
yeah, okay.
so if we did 16 weeks at $400 a week, it's $6,400.
Okay. I think we have, well, we must have the paperwork somewhere from whatever we paid last year.
And we have the 2,000 from the soccer
Yes.
club, so it would be 4,400 out of the city's pocket.
And then in the event that the soccer club also wanted fall, that would be
Oh, that's
another
right,
2,000,
yeah.
because we did
Right.
not contract that. So I will make a motion that we approve every other week for one Ty Schmidt, well, mowing every week, but every other week doing Ty Schmidt, and then other
Right.
For the city from Top Green.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Okay, on to F. So Therese set up 3 interviews with candidates for the city administrator position. And Ryan, Isley, Therese and I interviewed all 3 candidates. We advertised the position as a 20 to 30 hour position, so it's part-time, with flexible duties. We're gonna try to rethink this a little bit. After speaking with all 3 candidates, we unanimously came to the conclusion that Scott Hildebrand was someone the city could work with and would be a positive addition to our staff. Ryan, I know I'm putting you on the spot, but do you have any, so sorry, do you have anything to add about Scott? I was going to go over some of his qualifications.
I would say Scott came across as very competent and very knowledgeable about the city administrator position. He's done it for multiple years, and it seems like he would bring a lot to the table that the city could take from him to kind of streamline and, make our processes a lot more efficient.
Thank you guys for doing those interviews.
Yeah.
Some of the things I just wanted to point out was, some of his experience was establishing partnerships between the city, school, chamber of commerce, industrial development groups. So that, strengthening ties with our neighboring communities, that was one of the goals I wanted to work on. He also has quite a bit of experience with grants, both writing, managing, and knowledge of grants available. He's worked with city zoning ordinances. I see that twice on his resume. And he just really appeared that he has a system down to where he knows how to run a city efficiently. and just process and procedure
Thank God.
along. Yeah, just really, he was really, seemed quite competent.
Yep.
So, Alan, do you want to add anything to any of this discussion about the contract or?
Because full disclosure, Alan, you work with them where?
Yeah, we won't have a contract to review yet. That'll be
No,
next
no,
month,
no.
assuming that all this goes the way it should go. But I think full disclosure, to the extent that you guys don't know, Mr. Hildebrand has been our city administrator in Landfall now for a while, I'll just say, and just picked up another job in Maple Lake. So he's already wearing 2 hats, and he can do that because he is very efficient, he is very organized, very diligent. We've had good experience with him, and I've seen a lot of city administrators and managers through the years. And so certainly if I was asked and I said run away, I would have said run away based on his skill sets and competence. And so I think for what you guys need, and we had this discussion a couple months ago, it got kind of transmogrified into this bigger thing than I think it needs to be. And certainly with, you all doing the things that you're doing, streamlining, focusing, and he'll be a good addition, I think, for that goal. I just do. And he'll be the first one. I think he'd rather back off than fall on his face. And so if it gets to be too much, one of the things that we talked about before being here tonight was just giving a few incremental reviews to see how things are going and make it more of a provisional appointment, assuming that he accepts. And that way we can see just how he does, especially since we're coming into the busy season. And so a lot of these projects and things are already moving along. So it'll be a chance to see him jumping onto a train that's already going down the road.
So just so sorry, thank you. Just so I understand, we're not making him an offer tonight. We're just
You're authorizing us
discussing.
to send an offer letter to him. And then assuming that he accepts, then we'll work on the contract.
But the offer letter would be non-binding?
Well, it's an offer. It
Well-
will be binding on us.
It would be binding on us, but the contract isn't in front of us?
No, because we haven't made an offer to him yet.
We need your approval to extend the offer.
Make a-
Well, wait, so I guess I just want to find out, we can extend the offer, but until the council ratifies the contract, how is it binding on us?
Well, the offer would be an official overture to hire on these terms, right?
But can we see the terms, though, before we vote on them?
That's why we're talking now. What do you guys want to?
But, well, you said the offer that we make to him, is the offer that we make to him non-binding until we ratify it next month?
If you put out an offer, let's just say that we talk about it and you come up with 4 or 5 provisions that you want to put in the offer for employment.
Yeah.
right? Provisional for the next, several weeks, right, at some rate of pay.
Yeah.
With minimum expectations, that becomes the offer, and we would memorialize that into a contract.
So you're saying that I would put the offer forward to him without seeing the offer myself?
Well, we're going to be talking about it, so you'll know exactly what it is.
Oh, okay, all right, fine.
We need to
Well-
populate the offer letter with enough we can't just say, hey, come on aboard and we'll figure it out. So we need to
Okay.
entice him with something to say yes to. Once he does that, we'll bring it back as a contract, so.
All right.
Just a question about his resume. It looks like he stays in a position for 2 to 3 years. Did you talk to him about why he left the city of Pine City or Turtle Lake Housing?
I can tell you Turtle Lake was just a bridge too far. I mean, that's a ways out, so.
Okay.
After talking to him personally, I don't mean to,
No,
maybe
whatever
the-
you have to say, Alan, is helpful.
Maybe the mayor put, that to the test with him, but, he was running a pretty big circuit, and so something had to give, and so I think he had devoted his time to the job here.
Looks like he actually went back to them as well, so I'm going to go with that. He started at one point and then came back for something, so they clearly didn't hate him.
And I will say, he didn't have to tell us this, and he did, but and I can't remember which city he worked for, but basically, they brought him in as a full-time administrator, and he told the council, this is not a full-time job. There's not enough work to keep me busy for 40 hours a week. So,
So he ended up working 10,
yeah.
10 versus 40?
yes.
And so, there was that honesty, he wasn't trying to, milk the city for 40 hours a week.
Well, it does look like he
Why
has a
not?
couple jobs concurrently, which is
Yeah.
a little bit of a concern as far as how much.
And we're concerned
Be
about
here,
that
but,
too.
yeah.
Like, we don't want him spread too thin,
Mhm.
but after talking to him and the experience that he has and him explaining some of the processes and procedures he's put in, and efficiencies he's put in other cities, I think he would be a good fit.
Has he, did you happen to talk about the systems that we're currently using here, the software and such? Does he have experience with that? Because we did previously hire an accountant who we were thinking would be fabulous, and then they found out that the system we were using is totally incompatible with their experience. And so they quit almost immediately after we finished training, so we hired again. I'd love to avoid that, so.
Yeah. We talked specifically about the accounting software, and he
Okay.
pretty much said whatever works. There's no need to change anything if it's working for you,
Okay.
right? And we're such a small city
I was
here.
thinking the permitting software
Permitting.
is the big one that,
You knew about that, didn't he?
He
It's
did,
like-
and it sounded like he'd done something, I don't want to say automate, because automate's the wrong word, but implemented something similar to that in a previous city. And I don't know if it was exactly permitting software, but it was some sort of
Yep.
system,
Yeah,
IT system.
okay.
and
And then we would,
Therese was asking him about that particular software as well.
Mhm. Okay.
Because there's it's being underused right now, underutilized,
Mhm.
so.
Yeah, that was supposed to save us lots of money, so I
Correct.
would love to see that actually do what
Yeah.
we were sold on.
I know, we talked to him about that, and it seemed like he could figure that out.
Okay. And then we would still have our accountant, who is part-time, and Therese, who is part-time. Okay.
So basically
We'd
between.
have one full-timer across all, potentially?
Pardon?
One person, full-time across everything, or, I guess it'd be a little bit
40
more
hours
than full,
total plus the accountant.
Plus a little more,
Marcia,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, right now Teresa's working between 20 and 30,
Okay.
and I
Is
don't
this,
know. I think we could just, I don't want to overextend, so we could start at 20, and if it's not working out, we'll see if he needs more hours, but that was kind of my thinking. Since he's done this, he's got a pretty good system down.
Okay.
So,
And I can tell you, if it helps at all, when he took the Maple Lake job, he had to come back to council because he was contracted with Landfall to provide a full-time job. And I didn't think it was a full-time job, but it's not my decision to do that. So he approached the council and made the same argument that you were referring to, Ryan, and basically said the same thing. This is not a full-time job. You know, you're wasting my time and your money by having me sit and do nothing. And so I can do both, test me, I'll prove it, and that's what we did. And it's been working, so.
Okay.
so Alan, do we have to talk about contract tonight?
It would be helpful to have some basic terms to offer him so he knows what he's getting into. And so I don't know if anyone, certainly I don't know what those are. So we should at least have some bare
Okay.
bones to just populate the offer letter.
All right, so we talked a little bit,
Just curious if you have it was an RFP that we sent, like the actual application, do we have that handy?
I don't have it handy, but we advertised at $36 an hour
Okay.
and 20 to 30 hours a week. So I would suggest that we write the contract for 20 and just see how that goes. We also, Ryan, Teresa, and I had talked about, what was it, 6-month?
Probationary period.
Thank you, the 6-month probationary period with a review at 90 days. Basically, I didn't enjoy staff turnover in January, and
Shocking.
I don't want to do this again, and I don't want to go through that whole drill. So by making it, a provisional employment until we're happy and feel good about it, I'm hoping to avoid some of that.
Okay. So from our, let's see, we had wanted someone who could make edits to the website, et cetera. So all of the items that we had listed are items that he felt comfortable doing?
I don't think we talked website, did we?
No.
Because these two guys said they were gonna do it.
Oh, Did you know you were staying on forever?
The Ryan team
I
is
think we
coming
were gonna
in.
make some design changes. I don't know that I was planning to do any sort of like long-term maintenance.
Oh,
Nor
not
do I think
maintenance.
that's
Right,
like updating, I think.
yeah,
I think somebody who's reasonably tech savvy would get it pretty quick.
yeah,
I just haven't wanted to add it to Teresa's plate,
No.
because
No, that's a lot right
her
now.
plate is,
no, we can
you
figure that
know,
out.
pretty full,
I don't think
and
updating is a problem once
I
it's.
think anybody, he'll
Once you
get
know
it.
what you're doing.
We'll explain it,
Okay.
so.
And I guess my other question as well is, so if he is working part-time here, like you said Landfall was the one that he had done part-time?
Yeah,
Did they also have other staff there, or?
Landfall has essentially Scott as the city administrator, but the city's laid out a little differently.
Okay.
So the whole city is actually a park made up of manufactured homes. So the city runs the streets and all the public works, and the park is its own sort of separate entity, and that's run by a park manager. And then we have nominally a 2/3 FTE for the financial piece, more the city
Okay.
clerk and finance.
Okay, so there's staff there too, so it's not one person that he's magically doing 10 hours for a full-time job for that, okay.
Do we want to specify his hours worked? Like when specifically he's gonna be here?
We are sort of in a rethinking mode on all of that. What we found from those surveys is people like automation, right, doing things online. So if we can beef up the website to take care of, where people can take care of business online, where they have very little need to come into the office, then we really don't need a person physically here. So we were trying to balance that with customer service, right, because we want to be available to our residents. So, yes, he said he could come here, for a certain amount of hours. I think it was Thursday, he said.
I think you're right.
If it helps, I can tell you how he manages that in Landfall.
Yeah,
So we've modified the phone system so that if he gives out his number for his desk, if he's not there to answer it, it automatically goes to his cell phone, to his mobile.
Got
So
it.
he's always on, if you will.
No, I'm just wondering, from a contractual standpoint, if we have to say, these are the hours we want you working.
right, no. Basically, we're gonna allow him flexibility.
Okay,
I think what we all talked about is we just want, there's gonna be certain tasks that are assigned to Therese and certain tasks that are assigned to Scott. Just get your job done. You've got 20 hours to get your job done.
okay.
So,
So it would be-
or being independent,
So if he's here on Thursday, are we having Therese here on Tuesday because that's our current office hours?
she
or-
enjoys being here.
Well, I'm never gonna
She-
keep someone from being here,
Right,
but as
she,
far as
no,
like,
she works, she likes to
She does
physically
her
be here to
working here.
work.
okay,
So she is here, just the door's not unlocked. Because when the door is open, then, and rightly so, residents have an opportunity to come in and chat, which is great, and they should be allowed to do that, but she can't get her stuff done when she's visiting, so, but she is here.
okay.
So we just have to, we're rethinking this whole thing, right? And how the city can be run
Yeah.
without a full-time.
I think residents will be pretty understanding of fewer office hours if we don't have full-time staff. That's my feeling, is that one of the reasons is people saw that we seemed to have full-time staff and that the office wasn't staffed. And I think residents will be pretty understanding of that, so I'm fine with that.
I'm thinking as long as we are meeting their needs.
That's
Then,
right.
and
right.
we need to be able to do that. And if that is gonna require more physical time here, fine. But I would like just to explore a different way of doing things.
We can do appointment as well, right?
Right.
Fine with me, yep.
Just try it out. If it doesn't work, that's why it's provisional. If it doesn't work, we'll
I
try
assume
again.
we would have that individual, well, Scott potentially here for meetings as well then to go through all of their portion. So that I would make non-conditional
Okay,
as far as like, you must be at our city council meeting,
okay.
because that has a specific time and date for each
Okay.
month.
Yeah.
Other than that, if we're doing 20 hours a week, if he wants to do what would that be? 4 hours a day across all 5 days, or 20 hours over
2 days.
2 days. I don't have a preference, again, as long as everything's getting done and residents are getting their answers
Right.
answered.
And I think with realigning job responsibilities between him and Therese, it can be run that way. You know, she can take care of things that maybe you have to be here physically to take care of. So.
Well, ideally, there should be a little bit of cross-training so people can vacation, et cetera, but,
Absolutely. We also talked about that, yes.
and then the other portion as far as staffing would be, we do have some older residents that like to be walked through things. So in the event that, let's say, permitting was on his plate, and I don't want to take Teresa's time to then have her doing his portion if someone needs additional help. So I would like him available potentially for appointment only,
Okay. And
for
Teresa,
them to figure out with the person, obviously. So
Yep.
I don't have a preference for when that appointment happens as long as it's available.
okay,
But that would be my 2 cents as far as what I would like.
thank you. Anybody else? Vacation?
Can we just,
ESST, are we doing any of that, do you think?
I
we're
don't think we
required to
normally would do that. Well, we would do ESST, and we're proposing a policy on that. If you want to establish vacation, we could amend our policy for his vacation. And I would suggest that in the contract, we refer to our policy, and then if he wants to negotiate something, we update our policy based on his preferences, if you want to negotiate vacation with him. And so, I mean, we can put it in the contract too, but if we do that, then we can eliminate our conflicts. We just refer to the policy in the contract.
And if it's truly part-time and it truly is provisional,
Yeah,
we can call it that and just say no contract until we get through that provisional period. And that gives us time to kind of
Okay.
feel out whether it works, right? And it's just not a benefit or vacation, what do you want to say, accruing position. It's just straight part-time with some expectations. And then we can deal with the vacation stuff in the actual contract. That's just one way to do it, as opposed to having to worry about a contract long-term upfront.
That's a good idea.
I would also anticipate if he's part-time elsewhere as well, he might have health insurance, et cetera, that's
He
going to
does.
be carrying over already for those.
I think he's
So-
fine in Maple Lake because that's full-time.
Oh, okay. So in the event he's keeping that and doesn't need dual insurance, because that would be impressive, but probably not necessary. I'm okay adjusting other aspects when we're not paying that, but.
Okay. Okay. So can I get a motion to extend the offer to Mr. Hildebrand?
Would you like me to articulate a motion
Yes,
with the
please.
conditions?
Would you please?
Sure. I think what we're suggesting is that an offer letter go out to Mr. Hildebrand, offering employment, part-time employment with the city, to be the city's provisional city clerk / administrator for 20 hours a week at a rate of $36 per hour. And that appointment would be 6 months provisionally with a review after 90, and then after the final 90 days. And the expectations would be to prepare for and attend city council meetings, to provide Thursday afternoon office hours, as well as availability for appointment-only appointments with residents.
Perfect.
Would you move that?
Yeah, so moved. Can I have a
Second.
second? All in favor?
I'm
You okay, Ryan?
just happy with what you guys did. I'm happy with it. This wasn't my thing to pay attention to, so good job.
Yeah, all right.
Where are we at now?
So now we're doing the pullouts from the
Okay.
consent agenda. So the first one was I think Kathy, you asked for that to be pulled, was it? No, I'm sorry, Kathy. Let's just start with A then, the treasurer's report. And the only reason I asked to have that pulled out is I wanted just to point out to you guys that I asked Marcia if she could provide a different way of reporting.
Oh, I saw that chart in there. That's great.
Yeah, I just wanted to get your feedback on it.
Great.
Yeah.
It's the one towards the end. I wish we had page numbers. It's where it's the horizontal chart that has the gray and white, like alternating lines.
Is it the
Sorry.
4M?
It's getting late. I told you I can't do late meetings.
We're on page 84, is that the one you're talking
Oh, I don't know.
about? Or 84?
But anyway, if you notice the chart itself, reports out by month, how much each of the general funds categories are spending per month. And it compares it to budget, and it'll give us a percentage of the budget that we've spent already.
Is that the one on page 95, if you were looking at yours?
I gave up looking.
Interim financial report monthly analysis?
Yes,
that one?
yeah, thank you, that's what it is.
Page 95.
Thanks. Yes. So I wanted, it's hard for me to make good financial decisions without good data. And I thought this would be helpful. The only thing we're going to change, if you guys like this format, this breaks down like the total budget quarterly. So if you look at, I was looking at the street sweeping, for example, and if you look at that one, it says $1,000. And I had a question for her about that, because I didn't understand why our total amount budgeted was
Yeah.
4,000, and then I come here and I see 1,000. And Marcia explained that that's because this is a quarterly report, so you get a quarter of the actual budget, which is confusing to me. So she said that she could do it differently and just give us the
Yeah,
annual
If we could do
budget.
annual, I think that would be.
Right.
We don't
Do you
all
like the looks of this, and does this give you enough data so that we can make good decisions? I thought it was helpful too, in that when because we're entering budgeting season for next year already. And it would be nice to see where we stand each month, like how much we're spending in the different categories.
Can you have them adjust slightly on the, like where it says total account 310?
Yeah.
I don't know all the accounts specifically.
Right,
So
so,
if we could just include a word or two after that that says general fund, or, whatever it happens to be that we're actually pulling from on
well,
that.
that total account for 310 includes
from
the
above it,
two
right?
above, right? Yeah, or one above.
I assumed as much, but I wanted to verify that
Yeah.
what we're looking at kind of thing. And then the other portion that I would love to include, if we have the ability, is anything we have already earmarked for something later in the year
Earmarked.
that
Okay.
is already set up to be spent.
Got it.
Pork
So-
barrel.
Yeah.
Like earmarked funds.
Yep. For instance, like we have the Parks Committee, that special revenue fund, we have $10,000 we've committed to the match grant.
Yeah.
We can't spend that, so
Okay, good. That's a
So-
good suggestion.
that would be the other thing. I don't know how she wants to differentiate that it's unspent at this point, but earmarked, but
Okay.
I would like to have that in front of me when I'm reviewing in general, if possible.
And anybody else have suggestions?
Is there a way that you could flag areas of concern?
Yeah, I was just going by the percent of budget, but she could.
I think that would be helpful.
Okay. Anything else?
I know we haven't gotten our taxes funds yet this year, so that will adjust some of these numbers.
Oh,
soon.
right.
So if you're concerned about totals, that
Yeah.
hasn't happened yet to
And like,
refill the coffers.
I have just a thing to pull out of the treasurer's report when we get a chance. Is this an okay time? Or are we still
Sure,
on
I'm
the-
just, are you guys,
Yep,
is there any,
looks
other- okay.
Yeah,
like
that's
it.
good.
Agreed, yeah, I like it a lot. So I would like to, on page 69 of the agenda, there's it's the second one down from the bottom. It's from Andy Sorensen. It's the window for the warming house. This is the second time this has happened with supplies for the ice rink purchased without authorization. I don't think we can not pay this, but I do think, could we just pull this out for a month and just have Andy come into the meeting next month?
I did get some information on that.
Yeah,
Was
go
that
ahead,
you?
Oh,
go
okay.
ahead then.
Huh?
Go ahead.
Oh, so apparently what had happened, this occurred in December of last year,
Yeah,
and the window was broken. Jim had boarded it up, and it was a matter of, like, we need to get a new window in there. And because it was under 500, he was just told to go ahead and replace
oh,
it.
so this was staff authorized?
Yes.
Okay, then I won't, then let's just leave that be. I'm glad we got an
Yeah, I was-
explanation and like going, like, okay, great, thank you.
Yeah.
So with that, I will move to approve the treasurer's report.
Great. Can I get a second?
I'll second, Kathy.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Okay, the next thing pull out was B, the March city council meeting minutes.
Yeah, I had something I thought was wrong and now I can't find it, so I'm just gonna move to approve the March 11th city council meeting
Second.
minutes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Let's go on to F. Kathy, that was the keyless entry?
Yes, since we had approved this before,
Yes.
did we purchase anything last
No.
time? Because they brought in
We-
a sample for us to look at.
It was never purchased,
When-
but you had authorized 1,000.
When you mean by before, what do you say before? Do you mean
When we
like,
authorized it last time.
Like
which
2
was
years ago?
2 years ago.
so I bought something,
You had brought it.
I had bought something and then there were some concerns about the wireless technology and I returned it to the store and
Okay,
and
so it was
repaid the
returned
village.
fully.
Yep.
Okay.
So
That's
there's,
fine.
I would just do it fresh again here. That was a long
No, I
time
absolutely
ago.
agree to that, but as,
So-
I wanted to make sure if we
Yeah.
had this laying around that we
Nope.
were using.
I returned it, so,
Look what I found.
Yeah.
So we're gonna refer Therese to Techie Dudes and see what they.
Sounds
have to
great,
do, and
yep.
then Go from there. So any other questions about the keyless entry?
I mean, I have questions, but I think it's gonna be based on whatever they recommend and how that works afterwards.
Yes.
Well, are we just gonna say like whatever they recommend, like whether that be a key fob or a pad or we want a keypad?
I don't know. We're gonna explore options.
Okay.
we want something so we can make it available to people via remote access, so they can call up Scott in wherever Scott lives and get access to the city hall. Well, if somebody
not
wants to,
that.
oh,
If
Well,
someone's renting the facility that they can log in.
that's
and out.
right, that's what it is,
correct.
yeah, or,
But there's different ways of doing it where, like I've had experience with the keypads where each person gets a code, so,
yep,
you know, and you know who's in the building then,
yep,
right?
Yep.
So
and I
we'll just
think
have to explore it,
something like that, but yeah, whatever you guys,
yeah.
just,
You know, if it has a time frame too, where it's, your code can expire by a certain point, I've seen that as well, which is lovely, because then if someone has rented the facility for
Right.
whatever time frame, that
Yep, you can punch in.
they don't get
program
that
it.
code forever.
That's right.
So, that's
So,
fine
yeah,
with me.
we'll explore all those options. Any other questions about it? Okay, can I have a motion to,
I'll move to approve I've overshot
Resol-
this, I don't know what page it's on.
33, it's
30.
resolution 2025-33.
I would move that we approve, what page did you say it was? Sorry. Oh, here it is, I found it, okay. Resolution 2025-33 to spend up to $1,000 on keyless entry system.
I have a second.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Really didn't want to have a soggy brain for this one, but H is Resolution 2025-35 to approve a request for bid for a planning firm and permit processing service. And I pulled it out because, as Ryan Hankins has stated, he's got some current concerns about the current application of ordinances to permitting and to variances. And I think his concern is valid. We, as caretakers of the city, do not want to put our city in legal jeopardy, right? We want to be careful with how our money is spent, be careful with the way we make decisions. And going forward, we need to make sure that our processes are sound and legally, what am I trying to say?
Defensible.
Defensible, thank you. Wow, same word from two people.
Clearly the
So,
correct word then.
pardon?
Clearly the correct word then.
Yes, so it was suggested that we put permitting out to an RFP, which I'm not totally against. However, I was wondering, I just want to open this up for discussion, to see what everybody else thinks about it. I'm willing to have a trial period. One of the planning commissioners mentioned possibly doing a workshop with our current planner and the planning commission to go over code and how it's applied and whatever. I'm willing to explore that possibility if other people are interested in it. But basically, I want to know what the rest of you think. I know Ryan
I
has
have some
expressed me.
strong feelings, but why don't we let other people talk
Okay.
before I go or
Sure.
here, so.
So does anybody have any ideas? Bridget, do you?
I really like the idea of the RFP and bringing somebody in who has got a lot of experience, who's got a lot of systems, who's got backup. So that's where I am.
Have you thought anything about it, Ryan?
Like, I'm torn, I mean, to be honest, I don't feel like I have, like, I don't know what software we have. I don't know, like, is it gonna be redundant? We're gonna be paying for the software for permitting and then get an RFP and, RFB, I'm sorry. And then, like, have redundant software, like, I don't feel like I have a full grasp of the situation to really make, intelligent decision on this. And those are, I mean, that's kind of one of the reasons why. Another one is, it's like these things are coming out of the planning commission, and is it strictly the fault of the city planner and not the people looking at it? Like, whereas,
Those things should all be finished and finalized by the city planner. The only thing the planning commission should be doing is voting the variances up or down and basically adopting the findings of fact that were put forward by the city planner. And the city planner should provide you a guarantee that the permit that will be issued as a result of those variances is fully allowed by those variances. And that's kind of the immediate issue here that we were discussing earlier, is we have to know that the variances that are coming through allow the permit to be issued.
so then what's the point of the planning commission?
The planning commission recommends to the council whether variances should be approved or denied, and so if those variances are approved, then the permit can be issued. If the variances are not approved, then the permit has to be modified or can't be issued.
It's also recognized in the zoning ordinance, or I should say statute, at the state level. So it talks about a planning agency for cities, and that for many cities is called a planning commission. So it's a chance to slow down projects and ask the questions of, does it fit what we want to do here, things of that nature.
One of the things sorry.
I was gonna say, but if their sole purpose is only to say yes or no, and it still has to go to council to say yes or no with the exact same information, it seems like it's redundant to me.
Sometimes it changes, and it's really a citizen review, kind of a gut check by the
Sure.
residents for what's
Yep.
going on.
And so that's the thing, it's like if there's not a critical eye at at that step, you know what I mean? For them to say like, oh, like this doesn't seem right either, or,
I think that's a process issue here, and I think, there's a bigger picture here, which which is the planning commission has been really frustrated because for the same reason we were frustrated, well, maybe not you guys, but me, last meeting, was that I didn't have enough information to evaluate the variances there. And I don't think what's coming in from the planner is the only issue, but I think we need to work really hard to empower the planning commission to make good decisions. And we've passed ordinances, we passed an ordinance, you know, adding a bunch of requirements for variances, for appeals, for other things. We've really struggled to get to a point where the planning commission even understands what it's voting on. And in fact, in the last meeting, I didn't understand, and few people will rival me in Birchwood in terms of zoning nerdiness. So we, I think, you know, and so but I think the planning commission can be a really valuable thing for us, and it can take, and one of the other things that happened at the planning commission meeting, and this is actually a really good step we've done, we've started these pre-meetings. And so there was a variance up at 5 Oaks Lane, up there somewhere. And they came into the planning commission, and the planning commission, it wasn't even an application, it was just a discussion. They said, we're not likely to approve this, so they didn't apply. And so that kept that off our plate. What we'd been doing before was basically everybody who wanted to apply went to the planning commission with an application, and that would come to the council no matter what, and then you would get kind of this, people had paid their fee, so they were going to come to the council meeting even if it wasn't likely they'd get an acceptance. So in this case, the planning commission at least runs a little bit of interference for us. In some bigger cities, and we could do this here too, though I don't know that it's a great idea, the planning commission actually does the approvals of variances itself. So, but I think we're a long way from getting to that point. So
I just am, I guess, a little skeptical that someone's just gonna come here and save us. You know what I mean? But, and that's, and let me rephrase that. I don't feel like our ducks are in a row on some of this stuff. And is it better served for us to get our ducks in a row before we do a request for a bid?
I guess so I can give you a little bit of an answer to that is, I have been very hesitant to try to empower the planning commission to be a little more effective, because I think we need to make sure that they have the inputs they need to be effective, and we so far haven't gotten those from our current planner, and that we haven't gotten those well from our current planner. That means that they need, when there's a height variance, they need a clear diagram of the height of the structure. You know, when there's a retaining wall variance in play, they need it to be called out, that a retaining wall over 7 feet, they need all the variances called out to them so that they can be effective at all. It's not, and will never, and should never be the function of the planning commission to determine what does and doesn't meet code or not. That's really the function of city staff. And and this is kind of my concern here, is we seem to have a real deficit, a lack of capacity in the city to take in a zoning application and determine whether or not it meets code and which codes it does or doesn't meet. And that responsibility has been coming to me quite a bit. I'm not gonna, and you saw that in the meeting there, was basically that responsibility for determining what met code was coming to me, and that kind of can't happen here. And so,
No, and I agree with that. I don't think it's any council member's place to be doing that function. It should be city staff.
And then I think the question is, and so the other thing I can tell you is we've done a lot of work on our ordinances. There are still ambiguities. There's a lot of discussion about the tops of retaining walls. And I accept that those, Helen's smiling, but I accept that those, ambiguities in our code. There are other things that are not ambiguous, like whether a variance is required for a 7-foot retaining wall, when the code says that retaining walls are limited to 4 feet. And we've seen those things not being called out, and it's been kind of a consistent issue there with variances coming through. I would guess some of that is happening on permits as well, though I don't look at those, where we can't necessarily define our codes any more clearly. There's no ambiguity there, and yet these things are making it often all the way to the council without the kind of unambiguous variance request in place. And then, so,
Well, when we talked with Bolton and Mank,
you know,
the thing that I really liked about them, but it could be any kind of agency that does this, is they said a couple of things. One, they will look at our ordinances, understand them, and suggest ways to make them better. Two, they will make sure that the process is clean. So they're the ones that are checking that everything is complete. It's our most complicated process. It's our most high visibility process. If they have turnover in one of these large organizations, they've got backfill. If we have turnover in our little organization, we just have a mess. And so, for that reason alone, I would say, let's get somebody in here who does this really well and who's got backup. And then, I can't remember, Ryan, what their sort of culpability is, but they are on the line for making sure that this stuff is right.
and I don't know, that was one of the things we were really struggling with here with this recent one was,
Right.
I had asked the city planner, can you go from this, can you assure me that from these variance approvals, you can legally issue permits? And I got something about 4 lawyers, and that's one thing I think Bolton and Mink will do clearly, is that they'll put their reputation on the line and basically say, based on my liability assurance, based on my professional reputation, I guarantee you, or in, you know, they won't say I guarantee, but in the best of my opinion, they'll lawyer it a little bit, right? And say that it's my opinion that these permits can be issued at this
Right.
time.
It does give us more protection.
Yeah,
So I have a few comments about all this. I agree with Ryan Eisling regarding, we already have a permit process services that we've paid quite dearly for at this point, and it's one of our largest functions of our administration staff, that if we are taking that out of house, what are we having our staff do? That will change roles. That is a big concern. I also have a big concern about moving this outside of the city because records are not maintained as well when it's outside of the city. There's another concern. We can't have this leaving the city. We need to have it here. The other portion that I'm concerned about, Bolton and Mink or any other person, because I assume if we're opening this up, anyone could apply. If they are a professional planner, Ben is as well. As far as the information that they submit for that the best of their ability, they are reviewing something that exists and will be making a recommendation based on what they have available. But if they don't get all the information from the person or they change, which we know no one in our city would ever try and change the plans after they've already been approved, but it happens. So no one is going to give you a legal confirmation that there's no way any of this will ever change because they legally can't. So if we're getting rid of an individual or requesting that person resubmit for this job, I'm actually leaning towards having the planning commission meet with our current planner instead of breaking down what we already have and see if we can fix what we already have, because we're also looking at hiring a new individual. And if we have a 6-month time frame for that, if we are discovering that we don't need that much individual use for the administrator, there's a lot of variables going on here. So I'm not necessarily a fan of actually doing the RFP for this, because I feel like we have several steps before we throw out the bathwater with the baby.
I'm torn, but I also like the idea of having more than one person having their eyes on things. So like if it was a bigger firm, like it would be hopefully not just one guy saying, I think that looks good. And sending it through, it would be a little more of a critical, or a little more of a process to get it from, submission to actual execution of the permit. The other thing I'm concerned with is just, I don't know how to articulate this very well. Hopefully I can. And I might need your help with this, Alan. As the council, right? And someone applies for a permit, they need a variance. And then it goes to the planning commission, it was done incorrectly, and they come to us. Is really our only job to vote yes or no to that? And then if we find out something was done incorrectly, direct staff to correct that issue? Or it's not our job to then tell that individual, hey, you missed all these variances, and
Can I?
like, I'm trying to
Can I
think of the.
Address that a little bit, Ryan?
Maybe I need to read Robert's rules again or something.
I mean, I guess one of the things is the planners seem to send a lot of people emails lately. But one of the concerns I have is he basically said you have to trust your staff. And I agree that we have to develop trust in our staff. The problem is, I think that the council also has an oversight role. And, here where there's something objectively wrong and we're seeing it in a council meeting, I think it's absolutely our responsibility to fix it and to protect the city. Now, having said that, I'm getting applications or portions of applications sent to me with comments like, hey, Ryan, is this good enough for you?
That's unacceptable.
That's not acceptable to me.
Yes.
And I basically I've kind of said to Jen, there's been a lot of this going on. I don't think a lot of people in the council have necessarily seen it. And I've kind of said to Jen that I'm not going to do that role anymore. And as these things kind of arise, as did this issue with Pratt last month, we're basically, I think, going to have to move toward handling all those at the council level. So, for example, I got the retaining wall variance corrected between the planning commission, actually in the planning commission meeting. Going forward, I'm just going to let all that stuff come up to the council because I think it's at this point, it's really important for people to see the quality of the applications that are coming forward rather than, the other thing is on this 425 Lake Avenue one where an application was accepted without all the criteria being completed. I said, hey, maybe we need to, I actually talked to Alan, I said, hey, maybe we need to push this out a month. I think the council going forward I think we should bring all those forward to the council.
This is such
so
a
that we
broken
can see all
process.
those.
Just
Yes.
this conversation, it is so broken. It's got to get fixed.
So here is my concern, because I see how, in my interpretation of things is the way that things should be going, or should be done, is basically it comes to us, we say yes or no, and then let's say we say no. And then I just envision this perpetual cycle of us being like, you did it wrong, go back to the planning commission. You did it wrong, go back to the planning commission. And I think Ryan has been gracious with his time on the planning commission to try to resolve these issues and then try to resolve them on council, when I don't necessarily think it's in council's scope to be doing that. And so I would, if the fact is that these applications have not been coming in correct, and that there's so many issues, then I do think that an RFP is gonna be required, because we need, like Bridget said, we need to fix this process.
I mean,
And am I wrong by, like, outlining what the process should look like, Alan, or am I like?
Well, I'll offer a couple of things, hopefully they're helpful. Let's just take a new application, right? Just start from that. So everyone has the right to apply for anything, right? And all of this stuff rolls up to you, because the planning commission is merely advisory, right?
Yep.
They're there and they might throw up their hands and say, we can't even make you a recommendation because we're evenly split. And that's happened before. And so the important critical steps are to start with the planning, basically the 1599 rule, which talks about what happens when these applications come in. It starts a clock ticking, and I've told you guys before, as soon as we get an application, I think staff should push out an extension letter immediately, right? Because these things come up, and because you've got a fairly complex zoning code with a lot of working parts that really need to be addressed, and we've seen some of that firsthand. So buy yourselves the extra 60 days right off the bat, right? Because that takes some of the pressure off of staff, no matter who's doing the work, right? And you've only got a couple of weeks, basically, to decide whether or not the application is complete. So to your point, by the time it gets up to you, after it's gone through staff, the planning commission, and then for a final vote, if it gets kicked back at that point because, well, hey, it's not complete, or hey, you're missing one of these, I mean, the look is bad, right?
That's-
But it should be
that's
caught
what's
long
been
before that
going
point.
on, right? And I wanna defer to Jen, because you've been looking for a chance to say something, right?
Thanks.
So,
I just have one question. When a resident comes to the office and wants to fill out a building permit, or fills it out online, whatever, what's the next step? Who gets it?
it depends what it is. If it's, like we have a diagram for Bolton and Mink that basically is a flow chart.
Okay, but
things
now,
going
what's
through
our
the city.
current process?
Currently Hankins.
I think we need what I was going is, we need a flow chart, and we need to be documenting our processes. If we're gonna, like, right now, I think basically, somebody in the city makes a decision about where this goes, and everything should be going to one individual, probably the city planner. And then the city planner should send it out based on his judgment. Is there stormwater management? It goes to the engineer. Is there stuff for the building inspector? Almost always, that goes to him. Is there stuff for the DNR, something that goes to the DNR? And then you have kind of one place. Now, you can do that with our permit management system. We can also have an outside firm, and this kind of resolves the records management issues. Basically, they would store everything in our own records management permitting system there. But like that flow and that process is something that's, we basically treat the planner as kind of, as Therese as the person, and then that goes to the planner. The problem is sometimes staff make a judgment that the planner isn't needed. This is just a building permit issue. And that was kind of what happened down at this variance on Lake Avenue. And not the variance, the appeal down there on Lake Avenue, the Mahoney's and Harrods there, where was basically, the planner got missed on that because
Okay.
Therese or Becky or whoever determined that that was not a planning issue, and it only went to the building inspector, and it got approved without going through that process. And so, yeah, the other thing is, I think, Alan, did
Yeah,
you
go
have
ahead, I'm
something
done.
else?
Nope.
Okay, so the other thing I think is, one of the things that's really been difficult is, we have this 14-day, and Alan mentioned 1599. We have 14 days after we get a variance or a conditional use permit, basically to say, this document is good enough, it has all the information the planning commission needs. And it can go to the planning commission, and they can decide it based on this. Once that 14 days is expired, we can ask nicely, but we can't reject the application as not having stuff. And that's something that's really been a struggle, and that's where we've been defining those lists of things. But even after having defined lists of things, like, stuff is still coming in that is nowhere near complete, going to the planning commission, and then we're just getting a really, really bad results because.
But that should not be getting to the planning commission.
It's correct. It shouldn't be, it should be sent back to the applicant. And that was also that discussion we had, right, with the Schiffsky variance last week was, Ben, did you determine that this application was incomplete? He said, no, therefore it's come to us. It doesn't meet our requirements that are encoded in the ordinance, and yet the 14-day window is expired. So we're kind of, that's one of the things when you saw in that letter, this person has been back 5 times in front of the planning commission or council.
And
Yeah.
it
That can
starts-
happen.
No, it can't, and it starts with the staff here, who are not, who are not experts in this, but we expect them to be experts in this, and then they turn over, and then we expect some new person to become expert. It just doesn't make sense.
And if I may, just in defense of not only the process, but really the planner that's currently in that role, for a small city, it's pretty typical to expect that a lot of these folks do their homework before they approach the city, right? So there's always that tension there of, how much of this work should be on the person who wants to do these things and do the homework up front before they put an application in, so that the city isn't caught going, well, we'll give you this, but did we tell you that we need you to do this and this and this too? Sorry if we didn't tell you, we'll see you next month, sort of a thing. So it's tough when you don't have a full-time planning staff and department that can actually meet for these pre-planning sessions, so that the bigger cities can do that, right? They can sit down and say, well, you're gonna need a variance for this and a permit for that, et cetera, and go through the code. You just don't have that luxury here.
Yeah.
We are.
That's part of the problem.
We were told when we bought the software that we had that there was a checklist of some sort that was going to be used.
Good.
I don't believe that was
I haven't
the
seen it.
case. Yeah. So as far as whatever software we currently have, if we are hiring someone new who has the ability to look at that, there is a potential that we are not utilizing the software that we
But
already
did-
have well.
Hankins, you said that there's firms out there that can utilize that software, or can plug into it?
I would think any major planning firm, they basically, when we talked to Bolton and Mank. and
They did say they could do
basically
that,
said
I
specifically that
Yeah.
they were gonna get logged into that. There would
Yeah.
be no, and that everybody who was doing paper permitting would have to pay a little extra. Don't do that, and then it'll basically be a pretty streamlined process where, you've got a big.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And perhaps the answer for you guys is that you do have sort of a pre-application process with whatever you move forward with, so that it's a little more, fully vetted before the application comes in. 2 weeks goes by real fast once you've got an application, and it's a big thing with multiple variances being requested. And that's not something you can extend. That's the problem. So,
I'm fine with that. I think we've added pretty significant codes that describe basically what our application requirements are. It just doesn't seem to me like it should take 14 days to determine whether a variance application is complete. It would take me on most of these an hour or two, so.
But I have a feeling that our city staff is trying to fit that in amongst all the other things that they're doing. So if there's interruptions, et cetera, and I understand you can do it fast, but if our staff isn't as knowledgeable of our codes as they potentially should be, I do feel like there's a training miss that we're missing. And
Is
then
that their
also,
job?
they're the person that's going to be
No.
called.
It's not a city clerk's job.
It
That's
should go
not the city
directly to
clerk's job,
planner.
no.
Yeah.
It seems to me the city clerk can accept it, but then it goes straight to the planner who makes the decision.
And
That's the knowledge base there.
and I'm not sure how much there is going on there of like saying, oh, hey, a height variance is needed, then it's reasonable to request a drawing of this or a drawing of that. And I'm afraid to define that too clearly in policy, because I think once you define something in policy, then it becomes, well, this always has to happen, and then you end up demanding documents that aren't always necessary there too. So, like, there has to be in that part, I think, a little bit of judgment too.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
I think we all agree that there's a problem, right?
Mm-hmm.
A serious problem with this procedure, whether we try to work it out in-house or send it out for contract, whatever. We have to solve this problem. So I think we've heard enough about what's going on. Our decision tonight is whether we go out for a bid or not. I guess that's the resolution on the table.
So what I am wondering is, for one of our upcoming working sessions, would it make sense for Therese to walk through the process and the software that they use downstairs, and then maybe have Bolton and Mink come in and explain their process, so at least we can see sort of both sides of the house
That's a good
Before-
idea.
before we
Is there
make a
any,
decision?
is there any harm of doing a request for a bid? There's none.
We don't
No
have to
downsides.
take any bids.
What's
The
that?
only thing I do think is we have, the one thing I think we need to think about here is, if we're gonna do a request for a bid, we probably need to provide Ben an opportunity to bid. So,
Well, yeah,
We
of
told them we
course,
could.
but
Yeah.
anybody
Yeah.
can bid to
Right.
this.
Yeah, it's open, so I
Yeah.
mean, you can't
Yep,
discriminate.
and then we have to decide, okay, so that's fine, we can do
Yeah,
that, we can do
anybody,
it.
but we don't have to accept any bids either. We could just say, hey, we want bids to see what's out there, what
That's all it is.
services.
That's all it
Yeah,
is.
I don't think there's a harm in that. And like, I mean,
We also have to take into account our budget as well, so we are going to not be able to afford all of the things that we potentially want because our budget is very limited, so.
Right, and, you know, and we talked to Bolton and Mink about that a little bit, and basically, I think we can
I think we should
actually,
stop mentioning the specific company because I feel like that's favoritism to a group
Well-
that hasn't actually applied yet, so I prefer.
No,
us
when
not
we
to do
talked
that.
with them, we did say, we will want to have other competitors in this. You are the first people we're talking with. So we were really clear, and it's our only example that we can,
yeah, and I
it's
think
not a favor.
that's why we're doing an RFP here potentially is, you know, we've just talked to one outfit. I don't know how many are willing to do this. Bridget was excellent in the meeting and said, give me your competitors. So, and so, you know, I think that's what it is. But my estimation is that we would probably on balance be able to, one of the problems with Ben is, and the way he's compensated is basically with a retainer, and then he's billing through to the city. He has a proposal that would, I think, worsen things for us. So we're paying him more or less out of tax levy dollars. I don't know that I think it would be any worse on an hourly rate. I think we would likely actually end up with less coming out of tax levy dollars, so.
And at this point, we're kind of getting in the
Go
weeds
through.
as opposed to just what you're here to talk about, so.
I move to approve resolution 2535. Or 2025-35.
Can I get a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. One other thing, before we adjourn. We have the two variances out there that have been just dragging. That is a disservice to our residents. How are we gonna clean these up so these people can get on with their lives?
Yeah, I
Do you have
guess,
any
The wall.
ideas? Pardon?
One is the wall, which is the other one we're talking about, the one that we just talked about for
Yeah,
the
the
height.
variance, so the Pratt one, I know you can probably clean up right in the next month and let them move on. But what about the wall? Can we just figure this out somehow?
well, so Alan, can we, I think, have we moved the wall variance basically fully over to Bolton and Mink?
No.
The Shifsky variance?
I don't think so.
Could we move
We
the,
have well, in the background, just so that everyone's aware, we've been talking about how to move that forward. And so, sort of some bullet point positions were pushed over to Bolton and Mank to our city engineer, frankly. And so haven't heard back yet to see if we
Okay.
can't meet sometime this week and sort of get
because
a blessing on what we're thinking.
Because that variance has come in like with five revisions now, can we move that variance and the handling of that variance to Bolton and Mink?
We'd be paying for it, wouldn't we?
I'm willing to pay for it on this, given how I think the handling that has gone so far. The reservation I have is they're gonna have to kind of come up to speed on codes pretty quickly. If we
would.
do that. What's that?
They would. I don't have your current planner's contract in front of me, so I can't tell you whether there's any sort of exclusivity in there, right? So that would be the only reservation I would have, is you already have someone doing that job, so.
Yeah, so how do we hold the city planner accountable to get that job done?
You tell him to get the job done, and I don't know where it's at in terms of what he's doing and looking at. I really don't. So
Can I just-
I'd be happy to reach out to him and try to.
I mean,
put a-
I don't understand how this thing happened, but like, it's just come back, and like, this is super frustrating, and independent of my feelings on the variance, you know, this has come through again and again, and we just were not able to assess which variances were needed on it, so I'm fine with leaving it in the current process, but maybe what we just say is, Alan, could you just let us know? I try to stay independent of that. If you notice that thing is backing up, could we just call a special meeting, let us know and call a special meeting and figure out what we need to do to move that forward?
Sure.
Would like to move it to Bolton and Mink to get it forward, but I'm afraid that might back things up, but I am willing to come in and do a special meeting if we need to, like, do something just to kind of start moving these things forward, so.
We need that one to move along for sure,
Yep,
so.
and if you notice anything backing up, like, let's have a special meeting. So the other one, I don't know, that one seems kind of wrapped up at this point, right?
I think, yeah, and thank you for the email, I did get that. I think it's probably best, since the person with the most experience with this is still your current city planner. So I will reach out with the list that we came up with and try to gauge what kind of time it's gonna take, and if we can wrap that up this month. I mean, definitively.
Yeah, we
If
need
that's
to do
not
that.
realistic, then I don't mind reaching out to another provider of that service, but you're already kind of in for the penny at this point. And so I would hate to have something that complex be thrown into another firm's lap to start from zero. That seems inefficient.
Going forward, I mean, we'll get this cleaned up, there's the Shifsky one, the Pratt one, but going forward, we cannot do this. It has to be a streamlined process. It's not fair to our residents to come in. If they come in with an incomplete application, the city shouldn't even accept it. It's just, no, sorry, try again. That, it should stop right at the door.
And if it helps at all, I don't think that, assuming Scott's the person who's sitting next to me moving forward, he's got some experience in that regard, and so that'll be a very different set of eyes on these things when they come in. And I never get to see them, with all due respect, and so it'd be nice, I mean, there are other folks that have been around that could have looked at some of this stuff that just have never had the opportunity. So I think it might correct itself very quickly, just
Yeah.
with some changing of the guard.
Okay.
But I'll work on these specifically, just because I get what you're laying down. Let's get them done.
Well,
Thank you.
I'm willing to look at processes, but I guess I think we need to do that. I think we need to get over this current hump here too,
Yes.
with this other stuff going through, and I'll spend the next month thinking about that a little bit, so.
Yeah, we owe it to, as you said, the residents, because, I mean, it's kind of
It's
unacceptable.
not fair to them.
Especially when it all has to get meted out here.
Right.
You know, that hurts everybody, so.
It does.
Yeah, because it's 9:30.
And I
Anyway,
know you want to adjourn, but was this just FYI?
No.
That's what I thought. This is still, but
sorry.
I'm just bringing it up because we haven't talked about
Hi.
it, so.
Good.
So we've talked about this. I think this is my third time.
Did it get added to the agenda
No, it was accidentally left out.
tonight? Did you add it at the beginning? I was
Yes, and
downstairs.
then
No, we
added
did,
it,
we
yes.
did.
I didn't get a chance to number
Sorry.
it, but anyway.
I just feel like, okay, third time's the
One
charm.
more, yeah.
We've talked about this. This resolution gives Parks and Natural Resources Committee the ability to plan and budget and use dock fees to spend on parks and all of these good things.
I move to approve resolution 2025-38.
Do we want to put it up on the thing to get it actually in the record, since no one else has a copy of it?
Sure.
Don't you have a copy?
Well, I mean,
Oh,
I have a copy. The
okay,
people who potentially would be watching from home, should they want to actually look at it.
I see. Turn on the specially named viewing device.
Yeah, whatever that thing is called, I know it has a name, but.
Anyway, we have a motion on the table. We have a second. We can vote and we can show, right?
Yep.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. There it is, in all its glory.
I
Yeah.
move to adjourn.
I second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned. Thanks,
got it done.
everyone.
We did it. We did it. We did it.